Let's reconvene, and next up is Parks and Recreation. Sounds like a TV show.
It is a TV show.
I know, I've never seen it.
Is it still on?
No.
No.
I think they play reruns, but
All right.
yeah. Good
Maureen,
afternoon,
hello.
Mayor and council members. Lovely to see you today. I'm going to be talking to you about the Parks and Recreation Department. The first slide here highlights the organizational structure of the department. In addition to myself, there's 4 other full-time staff, as well as over 50 part-time staff, as well as contract service providers that offer multiple classes and programs throughout the year. As Stuart mentioned, the last time we went through the budget cycle, we focused on aligning our budget programs to City Council goals. And this time we're looking to dive a little bit deeper. What I did was I extracted some of the common threads from our budget program descriptions to encourage a deeper conversation with the council about what we do as a department. So the first being serving the community, both the percentage of the population and various demographics. So there are subsets of the population that we know we aren't serving or choose not to serve, and need to have the dialogue about why that is and whether the council is comfortable with that. Obviously we can't serve the entire population, but just having a better understanding of how we are serving the community and to what extent. Secondly, meeting the needs of the community, and whether or not this is something that's being directed as a process from the inside out or the outside in, whether that's being staff-driven or community-led or some combination of the two, and what that looks like in terms of resource allocation and financial implications. The last two are a little bit more abstract. We're not making widgets, so how do we quantify things like having a healthy community and enhancing the quality of life for our residents? What does that look like? How does it manifest itself? And how do we know when we're achieving this goal? It's not easy to quantify those things. And when we talk about our why as a department, we talk about things such as, encouraging healthy lifestyles and making memories and bringing the community together through gathering spaces and child development. And, they're not always tangible things. And so how are we as a department, as an organization, knowing that we're meeting those goals? So those are the kinds of conversations that we're having internally and that we want to encourage amongst the council as well. Stuart touched on these already, so I'm not going to talk a whole lot about them. We don't have a substantial variance between the current fiscal budget and the upcoming fiscal years. The 2 new requests that we have are deep cleaning of our facilities, just to continue to maintain high quality facilities for public use, and equipment and supplies for the expansion of our after-school program. And then on the next slide are the requests for consideration from the Parks and Recreation Commission. Most of these, with the exception of the special events being an annual expense, all others are one-time expenses, and the majority of them pertain to facilities. And again, echo the desire from staff to continue to maintain high-quality facilities on a year-round basis. And we did a needs assessment survey to the community in 2017, and a lot of the feedback from the community drove these Park and Rec Commission requests and were an outcoming of multiple commission subcommittee meetings as well. The last slide I have for you is with regards to our co-sponsorship budget. As you know, we strive to support local nonprofit organizations and aid them in achieving their missions to serve the community. We often waive the cost of facility use as well as deposit and insurance requirements to enable them to raise funds for their operations. So many of the groups that we support through co-sponsorships are listed on the slide here for you. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, Counsel Question. Karen, let's start with you.
I don't have any questions right now.
Okay.
I might in a minute.
Madison. Clifford.
Thank you, Noreen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and thank you for the great job you and your staff have been doing over the last couple of years. The feedback that I've gotten from the community is that they're very satisfied and they're just thrilled with all of the services and programs that are being provided to really improve the quality of life of living in Brisbane. So, I saw an email from the superintendent, regarding the after-school building at BES. So can you, I was meaning to reach out to Ronan because I wasn't exactly sure what he meant by that, but it sounded like that might not happen, but that new building.
So where we're at in the process is we're in phase 1. We anticipate the rental unit coming in this summer for the start of the fall school year. So we have that in place for the upcoming school year, which allows us to expand the capacity and enroll 80 kids. We do still have a wait list. I think what you might be referring to is phase 2 of the project, which is the permanent replacement. And Stuart and I met with the superintendent and the principal of BES a couple of weeks ago and proposed to them 2 different options with regards to the overall footprint of the permanent replacement modular. And he spoke with his board and other school district staff, and their recommendation, their preference, was for the smaller unit, which will impact our ability to enroll for the program.
Okay, so the larger unit was going to move into the footprint of the basketball court?
That's correct.
So the smaller unit will just take up that empty space that is behind the existing building and the fence on San Bruno Avenue?
Yes, so it will extend lengthwise and widthwise, but not encroach entirely onto the basketball court. So it will preserve the basketball court.
Okay, so based on this new building, the smaller configuration, and what we'll be providing this year with our existing building and this temporary building, once the new building is built, would that be a smaller allotment of kids being able to participate in after-school programs than what might be given to these students for this
Potentially,
upcoming year?
yes, because the replacement modular, the hope is that it will have a restroom, and so you can't count that square footage as programmable space, and so that will be extracted from the capacity that the building is licensed for. So it could result in us reducing our enrollment beyond what it is at this upcoming school year.
Okay, all right.
And we won't know until we have the actual footprint of the building and have fire come out and denote the capacity.
All right, and I guess there's no possibility of moving the basketball court a little bit to accommodate the larger footprint?
Even with the smaller modular, we will have to shift the basketball court slightly so that the edge of the basketball court is not right up against the side of the building.
Okay.
Yeah.
When John was up here, we talked about the planning commissioners going to the League of California Cities annual event, and and how important that is, for their growth.
Yes.
But also, for you and your staff. What conferences are you going to, and also how do you engage the other cities in the area to get best practices?
Sure. So personally, I've attended the Priority-Based Budgeting Conference and MMANC Conference in Monterey. My staff usually attends more specific conferences catered towards their specialties in our department. So we have, aquatics coordinator who attends, aquatics conferences and regular aquatics meetings through various aquatics organizations. I'm part of the San Mateo County Parks and Recreation Administrators Group. So we meet every other month, and I meet with other directors from Park and Recreation departments on the peninsula. We actually are in the process of coordinating Parks and Recreation Commissioners training that will take place later this year for commissioners in the area. So
There's also a statewide organization that the commissioners have gone to in the past.
Yes, so California Parks and Recreation Society, we are members of as individual staff as well as our commissioners.
Okay, great. And then this is a question for you, Stuart. So you touched upon it. Noreen showed the slide for the Park and Rec commissioner requests. What part of today's workshop do we evaluate that? And
That would be at the end.
okay. All right, so you'll bring up the slide again.
Yes.
And okay. Thank you, Noreen.
Thank you.
Karen, go ahead.
So why are we doing something that's not even meeting current requirements or current requests? I mean, it seems to me we're building something that's not even going to be able to accommodate, the current capacity of kids wanting to do school programs.
You mean for the after-school program?
Yeah, that's not making sense to me.
So the modular that we have in place now is only, the capacity is posted at 49.
Right.
We have 65 kids enrolled plus staff.
Yep.
And so the rental modular that we'll be using over the next school year gives us the capacity for another 49 because it's the same size. So we're able to accommodate the 80 kids plus staff. But we still do have a wait list of 15, and we anticipate more between now and the start of the school year. And we just don't have any other space that we can program out of for the after-school program in order to accommodate the kids on the wait list.
What about
The rental, is that just the rental, or will the permanent, because there's going to be a permanent new building that will come in that we want to come in because there is a need for more.
But
So,
that's what
that
Cliff
one
just
too?
mentioned. We're restricted by what the school district will allow us in terms of footprint on their campus.
Right. So what we did is we presented two different examples to the school district. We asked them if we can go to the 2,400 square foot building, because the 2,400 square foot building would allow us to get to about 100 students after school. And then there was an 1,800 square foot building, which is the smaller size. The school district, after looking at it, determined that the 1,800 square foot would work better with their programming, and that if it doesn't meet all the after-school needs that we have, that as a city we should find a different way to work through our wait list.
Oh, no. Okay,
Yeah,
hold
I'm
on.
okay with it.
We need to have, the 2x2's got to have a meeting, because then there's no sense in even getting a new there's no sense in getting a rental, there's no sense in getting a new facility. I mean, yeah, we would like to have a bathroom, but for the amount of money that all that's going to cost.
Right.
We have a fairly good partnership with the school district. We provide a lot to them, and that's got to be a discussion, because as that stands, that is super disappointing to me. And maybe I'm just misunderstanding.
No,
but-
it's disappointing to staff as well. I'm going to do the best I can to speak for the school district from what I understand of them. So their concern is that there are a few days a year when the field is too muddy or too wet to be on, and that there are, I don't know, maybe a dozen days a year where they need to be on the upper blacktop where our basketball court is, where we put our programming. And the school district has felt, and not to put words in their mouths, but they feel that those dozen days are important enough for them that they do not want to have the 2,400 square foot modular there, because it would impact their ability to do. I told Ronan that does present a challenge to us, since we're not going to be able to expand our programming beyond the 80 students. He said he would look at maybe being able to find space within the school building to have us be able to use. The challenge that will create for us is then we'll be splitting our staff between the modular and the school building. So, I mean, there's not a perfect solution, but, we were going to bring this back to the commission before we did on Wednesday night, before we brought to the council, what we were going to do. Because what hopefully we'd be able to do through the commission is they would give a recommendation as to what they thought would be beneficial and what they thought might be a policy for waitlisting. We would then come to the city council with that before we went out to bid, because obviously it becomes an important question whether we do a 2,400 square foot building, an 1,800 square foot building, and if we do an 1,800 square foot building, what do we do about waitlisting? What do we do about the program itself? Some of the parents have brought up the idea that maybe you oversubscribe your program. So instead of having the 80 that would actually fit in the building, maybe you subscribe 100 students, recognizing that not on every day, not every student shows up. The concern from our perspective is we're not an airplane. where we can't tell somebody if we have 90 students show up that day, sorry, the last 10 get to go home because the
Already
parents
over
weren't expecting that.
capacity. We're already over capacity.
We're over capacity. I mean, we're dealing with it the best we can. We try not to keep the kids inside. It is very concerning to us, and it is a topic that we were going to talk with the Parks and Recreation Commission and talk with the City Council, and we did inform the 2x2 about this because we do know that this is an important issue.
So just to clarify, from the school district's perspective, it makes more sense for us to find alternative solutions for kids every single day of the year, pretty much, including the summer, then ask them to find alternative solutions for a dozen or less days when the field is too soggy. Is that what they're saying?
That would be the interpretation I have of their email to me. Yes.
I don't know what the condition of the field is right now, but when I was at BES, we used the blacktop next to the modular maybe 6 times a year. There's also Little Toys, so you could have, kindergarten through 2nd grade at Little Toys, and you could have 3rd grade through 5th on Big Toy. I mean, there's so many solutions that we can pursue, but I'm extremely disappointed, and I would even consider holding back some of the things that we offer them that they really cherish to get them to come to the table on this, because this is a problem. I have to stop talking because I'll probably say something I regret, but I'm extremely disappointed.
Well, from the perspective that taxpayer dollars are going into this, it's really hard for me to look in the face of any of the parents and say, we're going to spend your tax money on expanding the after-school program, but there's no guarantee your kid can go there today when we're going to be growing and expanding, so that problem's only going to get worse. I'm certainly not happy hearing this at all.
We can't even expand. I mean, we can just provide pretty much the same thing, which has been so much of the feedback I think that parents have given us is that we would like our kids to not have to play kickball every single day. We'd like our kids to have to be able to go inside and have programming and do projects and things like that, and not just have essentially a large extended recess where they're just playing kickball. We want to have more places for them to go where they can be creative and learn and have more options in terms of programming. And if we're not able to provide a larger space, then that's not necessarily as achievable. And it also doesn't make sense to replace the modular necessarily if we're just trading out the existing situation for the same situation, but it's going to cost us, over $100,000 to do that. It's like, why spend that money on something else? So I don't know, but that's like a 2x2 conversation.
Okay.
Right.
Well,
I mean, as staff, we've heard that, and we've improved our programming, and that's actually part of the problem we're having. Is that we've improved our programming. We used to have, between 3rd and 4th grade, we did not have very many people sign up, but I think we had 15 4th graders sign up this year, as opposed to 3. So, I mean, the success. We've been very successful. We've brought in very good staff to oversee the program in the last couple of years, and it's been improving. And we are a victim of our own success to some extent to that. And I will express the concern of the City Council to the superintendent, so that way maybe we can resolve it before it has to go to a 2x2.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's communicate more before we pull out the mask and gun.
So, not to beat a dead horse with this one, on this, help me to understand how we can have a building with a capacity of 47 and we have 80 students and staff.
We don't have 80 currently. We have the school year's over, but we had 65 enrolled in this past school year. And so we just balanced programming, having some kids inside, some kids outside. We have some use of the cafeteria, so we were able to kind of leverage, the 3 spaces as best we could throughout the year to kind of manage the capacity restraints. For the next school year, we will have an 80 capacity between the 2 modulars, the existing and the rental.
So, and that's the anticipation is that we're going to always keep the existing and have an additional module, even once it's not a temporary?
The plan was just for the next school year to have the existing and the rental. And then that the following school year that we would have plans in place for a more permanent structure that would replace the two.
Right. So the footprint right now that we're looking at is more of an L-shaped footprint. And then when we go to the permanent, it will be a rectangular footprint that has a bathroom inside that takes up all the space that we're currently taking up all the way to the fence, and then another, basically a double wide. Right now we are a single wide that doesn't go to the fence, so it would be where we are, extend it, make it a little bit bigger, and make it a double wide, and that would then move the basketball court. If we could go to a triple wide, we would then have the capacity to get rid of our wait list. And we already know we're going to have a wait list this year. It is a challenge.
And again,
hopefully that tried to explain it better.
okay, and that, how is best to put this? That's the program that the school's not interested in going that large.
Correct. They are concerned that if we go to the triple wide, then they would not be able. Then the basketball court would have to go away, and they would not have access to. They would not be able to use the blacktop because there would be no blacktop for them to use when the field is wet.
Okay, and does that take into consideration our wait list? Don't we have new regulations on how many days a week kids
Right. So that's
there now?
Right. So that would be for the preschool program. So the preschool program, right, we now have it where you can be there for 4 days a week because you're allowed to have a preschool person for 12 hours a week. So we're going to have a program that runs 5 days a week, 3 hours a day. You can sign up for any 4 days that you need. If we were to become a certified program, yes, if we get the new modular, either one in, we could become certified. Our anticipation is that would probably take us a couple of years. That would probably help us increase the number of people we can deal with for preschool. And we'd be able to meet a need, but we wouldn't be able to meet the need of parents who need daycare all day long. And the reason being is that we need the modular after school for our after school program. So we can only, as a city in that space, we can only run a half day preschool program.
Is being certified contingent on a bathroom?
Yes.
Is that the main thing that we're missing?
Well, there's a number of
many
main things.
but
Okay.
There's staffing levels,
yeah,
there's
staffing
training.
qualifications. Yep.
Okay. Sorry.
It's okay.
To follow up.
Nope. All right, thank you.
Clark, if I may, so Noreen, the temporary building, the rental, where's that one going to be located?
It's going to be, so the existing modular goes this way, and then the rental will go alongside the fence along San Bruno Avenue,
Okay.
on the back side of the basketball court.
Okay, so if we did the double wide, and could we keep the rental for a certain amount of time? Or is there just not enough space?
There's
to
probably
do all
not enough
that?
space.
Okay. And just to let the council know, during the 2x2 meeting, we did talk about other options, perhaps utilizing some of the school space for after-school programs. And so we're definitely going to have a deeper conversation in that. But these students or these kids that we're talking about, these are our kids. They're not school kids. This is after school programming. What are we going to do for these kids and these parents that need their kids to be in a safe place?
Yeah.
And so, but we all got to work together. And I can, when I first got the email, I thought that we weren't going to have a new building, and now I'm at least somewhat relieved that we're going to have a new building and we are going to increase the capacity, but it's still not enough. And so we need to hammer that out, and I feel pretty confident that in the end we will. But we do need the new building with a bathroom,
All right.
which we currently do not have in our existing building.
Well, doesn't the temporary have a bathroom?
No.
Oh.
It just expands what we have.
Yep.
So the conversation will take place, so, we'll just have to go from there. So we're not going to solve it here, so.
Right, right.
No.
Well, just keep us updated, because
Absolutely.
maybe I missed it, but I didn't hear a report out on 2x2 at the last council meeting, so.
We haven't had a meeting recently.
No, this is just an email that I.
Yeah, we didn't go in, I guess, into deeper detail on
You just got an
everything.
email.
Yeah, we just got this email, yeah.
Oh.
And it is, the topic is agendized for the Park and Rec Commission meeting next week.
Okay, well, I'm really interested in this, so
can-
just let me know what happens.
Terry?
I did have one other question, and that's in the budget for
Hold on, okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, go ahead.
for Day in the Park, $25,000.
Yes.
Wasn't that increased a year or so ago because it was supposed to be a special day in the park? And have we reduced that funding back to pre-special day?
It's like 30.
Yes, so 2 years ago was the 30th annual day in the park, and we increased it to 30,000. So it's back to 25,000, was last year as well.
Okay. It just seems that it's a big expense for one day, and that if we get back more to it being about community and less about special events that we're paying for, and bring back more of the community part of it, maybe we wouldn't have quite that much of expenses.
But is that just the overall cost? Does that not include typically like what we make back in tickets and games and
correct.
things like that? So
Yes.
that number is probably going to be, as a true expenditure, much less, because we do take in revenues on the day of.
Okay.
Right, like when we look at the Star City Music Festival, right? So that might be budgeted at 30,000, but really we ended up taking in something like
13,000.
13. So in terms of actually money that the city didn't recoup, it was much less.
Yes.
Okay.
We didn't put that on the list for special events, huh?
Well, it was budgeted, was a city council special project, I believe.
That's a city council event.
Yeah.
Okay.
So again, it'd be good on the expenditures to have back what we get back on certain events so that we really know what the cost of those events are. Even if is a separate box that says, so we know what a program's really costing the city versus how many people it's helping, how many people are participating in it.
Okay.
Like projected,
Is that it, Terry?
Yes, that's it for me.
Okay, and Madison, you have,
I don't have anything else now.
does anybody have any other questions?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Thank you, Noreen. How's the little one doing?
She's good. She's starting to walk, so now I'm really in for it.
Oh, yeah.
Thank
Now
you.
you're in trouble.
Yes.
All right, thanks, sir.
Oh, fun. Okay. That takes care of the library. Next up is city manager.
Library.
I get to speak for the city manager.
That's what the city manager gets to designate people to talk for him.
Master delegator, right?
Well,
Chief delegator, that's right.
we'll see how it goes. She said.
Ooh, it's only a
You're the
one-pager.
one that made the budget. You present it, not me. I just sign on it.
So one of the things I did not point out when I did my overall presentation is that the organizational charts are different this year than they have been in the past as well. I've color-coded them, and one of the color codings that I have is yellow for contract employees or contract services. So that's something new this year that gives hopefully more information as to what we do. So in the city manager's office, you have the city clerk, the management analyst, and then the economic development manager, which is a contract that we have with Mitch. Program highlights. So really, the big thing for the city manager's office is community engagement. It's really wanting to make sure that what we do, people are engaged in. It's people that it's one of those rare ones for me. So it's making sure that people are aware of what we're doing and that people are able to participate in them, and that we're meeting a diverse group of interests. And this is something that we spend a lot of time on through the city manager's office, then through central services. which we'll get to in admin services. But, we do, this is where Caroline comes in and getting the stuff out on Facebook, getting everything out on, when we put stuff up on the board, when we, engage, even in our council meetings, when all that, Ingrid will get to that. So the question is, are we actually meeting the interests of the community? How do we know that? And that becomes the question, I think, from a council perspective. And I think, Council Member O'Connell brought it up, is how do we know, even when we do Day in the Park, that we're meeting the interests and the needs of what the community is having? Are we really, is a Day in the Park really the type of event that the community is looking for? Or are they looking for a different kind of an event? And I think, when the city council starts talking about how do we, what do you hold staff responsible for when it comes to that kind of engagement? How do we make sure that, are we getting information out where people are able to participate in council meetings and to participate in the decision making? I think those becomes the interesting questions that, from a council perspective, and how do we, and what do you want to see from us, and what kinds of programs do you expect to see from us on that? So I think that's, when we talk about community engagement, that's it. And then for economic development, another big area in the city manager's department, we're trying to retain and attract businesses in order to provide solid financial base to pay for desired services. That's our, that's the goal of economic development, is we want to make sure that we're able to have a economy in town that's able to provide services that the community wants. But then the question is that really what the city council is looking for when it comes to economic development, or are there other aspects of economic development that the city council is interested in? Some cities talk about making sure that you have good paying jobs in town, that it's not, economic development isn't just about the services that are provided to the community through the tax base, but also what kinds of jobs are provided in the community, what kinds of businesses are we trying to attract, specific kinds of businesses as a community, or does it really make, or does it not make a difference as to what kinds of businesses, as long as we're providing that solid financial base for desired services? So those are, when we talk about making sure that we're meeting the goals of the community and the city council, these are the kinds of questions I think we can spend more time on as we get, as we have more time to spend with each of the departments to really get an understanding of what programs you expect to see from us. And then from there we can say, okay, here's the kinds of things that we can do to meet what you're looking for. So those are the types of program highlights from the city manager's department, and there were no new items in the city manager's budget. And the library is just doing what we always do until we build the new one. How'd I do, Clay?
Questions?
I was hoping to get my vote, my grade before that.
All right, does anybody have any questions regarding city manager? Terry?
On the note that your big expenditures are economic development program, and then it has a breakdown of that, and it's basically Mitch and his
Yes.
group that's doing that. Supplies and services, I mean, I understand the salaries and taxes and those kind of things. What all is encompassed in the supplies and services for that department?
I'd have to go back and look at my detail for the $465, but the $50,000 is basically what we anticipate for the contract with Mitch, plus anything that he needs. And I will tell you that, in past years we've budgeted 70, and he's spent about 20 to 25. So I still think that the 50 is going to be higher than what what we'll end up spending through Mitch. But again, I was just trying to be conservative to say if we have some kind of businesses that we're trying to attract, and you need more of his time to give us that. But it's really the real big expense is just his contract and what he spends and time he spends with us. And as I said, in the past couple of years, it's been closer to 20,000. But I didn't want to bring it all the way down to 20.
But what is that on?
What is his contract?
No, I understand what his salaries are broken down.
His salary isn't there. His salary is the supplies and services, because he's a contract employee. Supplies and services would be the time that Clay spends on it,
Okay.
or something like that.
That clears it up for me, thank you.
Sorry. I was answering a different question. I often do.
That's it for me.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I never really thought about it before, what kind of businesses and employment opportunities do we want to see in the future? That's a great question. I think we need to explore that a little bit further.
Thank you. I mean, as I said, that's what program-based budgeting and priority-based budgeting is really trying to get to, is the purpose.
Yeah, it's like
And it's hard to create a budget with numbers until we really know what the purpose is that we're trying to achieve.
Right. So I'd like us to explore that somehow a little bit more.
Well, maybe that could be like an economic development sort of subcommittee agenda item, because we meet really closely with Mitch, and then maybe we can bring that back to council for weigh-in.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. No, I was just going to make a comment on that as well. I mean, I like your philosophy on how you view economic development. I mean, it isn't just, bringing in money and spending money. I mean, there's a human component to
Very
all
much.
this, and a human equity part of sustainability. And so, I'm looking forward to diving a little bit deeper into that with Mitch and bringing Stuart into the mix.
We have a meeting coming up. I don't know if it's too short notice to get that in there, but we can.
Well, what we're talking about, in regards to that, bringing in a particular food truck that might provide, additional eating opportunities for the community, is kind of just like that. What type of businesses do you want? What type of businesses will make an impact in a beneficial way on our citizens? So,
Cool.
yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions, Stuart? Stuart, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great time.
Okay,
Plus,
city clerk.
Bell.
Oh.
At least did I pass?
So who's doing library?
Well,
He did.
There is nothing new in the library than that we've done in the past, because we're still in the old building. So there's no new expenditures for that yet.
Yeah,
But I'm here to answer any questions on it.
Okay, well, I do actually have a question.
Okay, go
Mayor, on that. So, we're breaking ground this year, anticipating the ribbon cutting ceremony 2021.
No, next year.
Next
It's a
year.
year. It's a 12-month construction.
Oh, really? Oh, geez, that's awesome. Okay, so then we're going to have an old library. So we're going to need some kind of community engagement to figure out what to use that space
What the
for.
programming would be for that building?
Well, I mean, there's lots of opportunities, I think, but we won't really know what those opportunities are until we do that community outreach. So, what are you anticipating then? Setting that up.
I think we've had discussions about that along the way. Frankly, other things have just kind of crowded the schedule at this point, but your point is well made, and certainly as we move towards the opening of the new library and the availability of that space, we need to have something in place.
That'd be great. Yeah, because we don't want to leave it vacant. I mean, it'd be nice if there was like this, moving out and moving something in, fairly soon. Okay. That's
Any other questions? Terry, you got anything?
No, I'm good.
All right.
All right.
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you,
Thanks.
Clay.
Thanks.
Ingrid, come on forward.
Down.
Mayor and council, thank you for having me.
This is your first one, huh?
Yes, it's great to be on this side of the
Your maiden voice.
podium now. So we'll see how this goes. So as you know, the mission of the City Clerk's Department is to promote openness in government by processing and recording City Council actions and managing all official records of the council promptly and efficiently. So the main result really driving my work is the council-adopted community result of community building, meaning that Brisbane will honor the rich diversity of our city through community engagement and participation. For the next couple of years, there are no new items and new staff positions at this time. We're kind of like in the innovation implementation mode. And the program highlights for the next couple of years revolves around citizen engagement and records management. The previous city budget workshop, the program highlight was professional development. Former city clerk Sherry Spadiacci increase the professional development, to take me under her wings, and there you go. It worked. So now the city clerk program highlight for citizenship engagement, or citizen engagement, is focusing on the state policymakers' work. So the California Voters' Choice Act and the California Voter Participation Rights Act is really the two pieces of policy that is going to really shape my work for the next 2 years. Thinking about our results for community building, we're thinking about, will these two recent pieces of state legislation result in increased voter participation over time to our city? And will increased voter participation increase community engagement and participation in our city? Or should the city invest in increased local community engagement opportunities to increase voter participation? So as you know, the California Voters' Choice Act was the new pilot program that was implemented to do an all-mail ballot and vote center election model. Over the next couple of months, we'll work with the county to get more results from that model, from that election model. And the second one is the Voter Participation Rights Act, which really required all city council elections to be held in conjunction with statewide elections, so even years. The next program highlight is the records management. This year we'd like to focus on citywide records retention schedules, and we need to make sure that we manage records consistent with state law and actively promote methods which would improve the ease of public access to information and enhance staff efficiency in tracking and retrieving records. In terms of thinking about our results regarding community building, will improving the ease of public access to this information and records management policy increase community engagement? The second is, will comprehensive records management policy enhance staff efficiency in tracking and retrieving records, but decrease personal rapport and personal face-to-face interaction with the public? How will this new dynamic affect community engagement and participation? So really thinking about technology and how that really affects the personal and one-on-one rapport with staff. And that's the end. Any questions?
Okay, council question for Ingrid. Right? Me? Yeah. Cliff? Go ahead.
Thank you, Ingrid, for all your work over the past couple years. You've been, you had some pretty big shoes to fill.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Went through city clerk boot camp, and I think.
Yeah, no, Sherry.
Getting it.
Sherry was, just a great asset, and yeah, she did teach you well, Grasshopper. So,
Young Padawan.
no, because when you think about it, Ingrid, I mean, it's more than just the voting stuff. You prepare these meetings, you get the room organized, you help council with whatever they need. I mean, I really appreciate you helping me, get on my butt regarding the forms I got to file and making sure that I'm on schedule with that. And so, I think you do an excellent job. So based upon the all-mail ballot, and I don't know if you have this information off the top of your head, but did it increase voter turnout compared to 4 years ago during the last primary?
I'll have that information. We're meeting with the county next week, so I'll have a little bit of more information next week. But right now, I don't have those numbers yet from this.
If I could, Cliff, because I think it's a lot of people turn their ballots in on the last day, so it's yeah.
Me too. Guilty.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Some people vote early, even though it's a mail-in ballot and stuff like that. But I don't think you don't get the results as fast now, because you can turn it in or mail it that day, and they don't get it.
Yeah.
And it takes a while to get through it, and you're finding that, with something like that, it's not going to be.
Yeah, it's not like you're just,
results.
yeah,
It's efficient,
instant,
so, there's going to be a lot of
filling it
delayed
out, yeah.
victory parties, unless it's like
Yeah.
really
Well, you see that
separated,
in the San Francisco mayor's
And you're
race.
seeing it in San Francisco, but statewide on some things too,
That's right.
so.
Oh, what about our superintendent of county? I mean, is that one was like,
Well, there's the
Kind of
parcel
higher.
tax in Brisbane is about, was initially a 0.5% about, passing or not.
oh,
passing.
really?
Yeah, and it's.
Oh, I thought we were in the
it's
clear.
increased a little bit, but,
Okay.
Yeah, they're still,
So,
they're still
you
counting the
just-
votes.
Just, to answer that, I think for Ingrid, that, it's not, you gotta wait until
Gotta
all the
wait,
ballots
yeah.
are counted, so it's not gonna be, quick results like it used to be. I mean, I used to like it when you had that where you marked it and it's like,
That's right.
went in and,
Right
boom,
in.
man, at the end of the day, zoop, and then your mail-in ballots come in after, but the election
They're a
was
little
pretty
bit.
much settled that night by 8:15. You knew the
That's
results.
right.
Now it's different. Yeah, it's different.
Something with the cord.
So. Other questions? Terry?
The increase in budget for 17-18, there was actually more than 18-19. Was that just due to an anomaly that the salaries, the city clerk budget was higher for that year than what we anticipated to be now?
Maybe overtime.
So it's about how much we were spreading people out. So if you look at the actual expenditures for 16-17, they're in line with 18-19. And we had anticipated having to spend more for the city clerk's functions between the analyst and the city clerk, and we actually have been.
So it's going to be reflected somewhere else in a different person's budget?
We brought people in at lower steps than E.
Okay.
So it's what we have is a temporary savings because the people we're at A step as opposed to E step.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Johnson? Karen?
Nope, I have nothing.
Ingrid, thank you so much. Since you're up, I'll give you the signature from inside there is a pay raise, so.
Very efficient, Laura.
Slicky.
All right, just kidding. Okay, Stuart, you're up again.
Now, actually, I was thinking of having Clay speak for me.
Yeah,
Oh,
there you
okay.
go.
But then
Curveball.
then he showed me the org chart.
We understand plumbing and stuff doesn't go up here.
Yeah, that's what he did. He showed me the org chart, and I said, oh, I guess it doesn't work that way.
There's something wrong with the.
I'm
I
yellow.
don't
It's
know.
yellow because it's happy. It's like the sunshine.
Safety color.
Wait a minute, now that's green, isn't it? It's lime.
Lime green.
It's lime.
It's lime
Could be
green, too.
lime.
It's good.
It's hurting my eyes.
Yeah.
Green.
It was flickering colors earlier. I think there might be like something with the cord or I don't know.
Just
We
turn
can
it upside down and shake it. Oh,
Percussive maintenance.
works on the Etch-a-Sketch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, lime.
lime green, actually. We just thought you were being colorful this morning.
It's like,
No, it's like it was the colors were flickering between white and it, like as if it was like a cord.
Right. So the question is the cord connected fully to the is it?
Oh, the lamp is looking green, actually.
Oh.
It's a lamp issue. The gremlins got up
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Oh, the light up there is green.
Right, but the monitors. Right.
Yeah.
Whatever, okay. No touch,
Turn it on and off.
not a big deal, let's go.
the Russians are coming, the Russians are coming.
The Russians are here.
Blame it on the bulb.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, so the yellow doesn't show up where this says Insight contract, but darn. Okay, so here's the Admin Services Department. It includes information technologies, it includes finance, Includes our senior management analyst in charge of communications. That's split between here and the city manager's office, and then it includes HR. This year, we have no new positions, but we are anticipating upgrading our third person to a senior accounting assistant who does payables right now. They're going to take on additional duties as we're finding the person is much more capable than just doing payables. So we're going to be able to do that. Our program highlights, I talked a little bit about this when I did my presentation at the beginning. It's like, the two that we look on in finance is the two big ones is accounting and forecasting and budgeting. And, the question is, how do we know that we're giving you the information you're looking for? How do we know the public's getting the information they're looking for? One of the things that we're beginning to research we've been researching for a little bit, and we're going to try and figure out where to go is for transparency, is getting information, our financial information out to the public that we have. The question comes when you just provide financial information to the public. It just says, here's what we spend, here's what we take in. Does that really tell the public anything? Or is it just information? And the question then comes is, if you have it just available on your website, then you're expecting people to come to your website to get information. And how useful is that? And every time when people talk to me in other studies says, well, I have it on my website, my question always back to them is, okay, do you like Starbucks coffee? And when was the last time you went on their website to see what's going on in Starbucks? So just because something is available on your website doesn't mean that we're actually providing information that people are receiving. So I think that's going to be one of the questions is when we start talking about providing transparency in our finances is how do we actually get that information out to people where they're actually receiving it?
Or is that something people want to,
or even want? Well, there's usually like 3 or 4 people who want it. And the question is, how much money do we spend to satisfy
deliver
through to those people? And as you know, my door is always open. I always enjoy talking about finances. So if anybody wants to come down and spend a day with me, more than happy. Forecasting and budgeting, financial decisions are made with knowledge on the future ability to pay for services. I think, this is what we're doing today, whereas we're making sure that we can, but is there other ways that we can provide this information, or are there other times that the city council or the public is looking for this information? And is there better ways that we can display it so it's better understood? So, all those things are the kinds of things that when we're talking about, the financial side is what we're thinking of. On the HR side, the big one is the employee and labor relations. Our goal is to attract and retain a high-quality workforce. That just raises lots of good questions in my mind. Do we always want to retain everybody? Do we do it in such a way, where we attract people who are qualified, not only qualified for their position, but have potential for growth? And if they have potential for growth, is it our goal to retain them, or is our goal to groom them so they can go find jobs elsewhere? Because that becomes a challenge if we're trying to retain everybody and we don't have positions for them. How do we do that? So that becomes an interesting question when you start talking about employee and labor relations as to what you're really looking for when we talk about attraction and retention. In the past couple of years, we've done a really good job in attracting people. If you think about the people that we've been able to attract in the last 3 or 4 years, our Parks and Recreation manager, we were able to get from Menlo Park. Our financial services manager, we were able to get from Millbrae. Our sustainability analyst, we were able to get from Sustainable San Mateo County. So, we've been able to attract really good people. The next question is how do we retain those people? Or do we continue to say, okay, we're going to attract really good people, train them, and then attract other really good people because they know that if they come here, they'll have really interesting jobs. So that becomes a question: is what is it that you really are looking for when we're doing this? And this is going to play right into the what's going to be happening next year, which is our labor contracts. So I think those are the kinds of for me, the interesting kinds of questions that come up when you talk about finance, when you talk about HR. And then, as I said, the other one that we have with us is Caroline, and public education, and her job is to ensure that community is aware of programs, services, and projects the city is doing. And what does that mean? And what does it mean in today's time of social media? and interaction with the public when it comes to social media. How involved do we want to be in responding to every comment on Facebook? The Residents of Facebook page, Residents Brisbane Facebook page. Do we want to be there? Tweeting? Do we want to be at the cutting edge of every type of social media? Is that really where we need to be? And I don't know. I mean, it's a good, for me, that's a good policy kind of conversation, because it takes time. If we're expecting to have staff who's going to be able to be responsive on Residents of Facebook page, you kind of need to be 24/7, because you never know when people are going to be commenting on it. And the question, from a city perspective, is if you're commenting on a 24/7 kind of basis, how much time do you have to really formulate the right answer? And, in today's society, are people expecting the right answer right away, or are they expecting some answer right away that can be corrected later? But all those are interesting, for me, those are all the philosophical and policy kinds of questions when we get into these kinds of conversations that I think, again, we can spend more time with.
It's only going to get worse.
And it's only going to get worse. It's like, when people tell me about the idea that, it's so much harder now because you have to be so responsive to people, I always think back to the first public employee who had to answer the phone. That first phone call they ever got, it's like, oh my God, I got to talk to a person live. Because it used to be you could write a letter, and you can spend a couple of days figuring out what you want to put in your letter. But I can only imagine that first phone call you got. It's like, oh my God, I have to interact with the person in real time. It'd be kind of strange. But that's kind of where we are now. Is that real time kind of interaction with people, and what are people expecting in that, and what is the city council expecting staff to be able to do? And
I want it now. I want it
now, and the challenge is every department has different information. So is it every department's responsible for responding all the time, every day? I mean, but that's, as the mayor said, that's what people are expecting from us. And when we don't, they sit there and go, why is it taking so long?
I mean, that is definitely a philosophical question, for us to answer. I mean, it is about balance. And time is money. So,
yes.
But I don't think you're expecting us.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying that. So these are the kinds of things that, as I said, that at the very beginning, we anticipate bringing back each department over the next year and a half, so we can have some of these more in-depth conversations. So as we formulate the budget in 2 years, we can have a better tailored budget for the programs that the city council is looking for.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The new item that we have in the budget for the upcoming year is a contract for OPEB and personnel costing software. They each cost about $5,000 each. So as I was talking about with the pension software, I have a pension software that has all the assumptions in it, and we can run whatever models we want, and we can project out, and we can use that for projections. My suggestion would be to do the same thing for OPEB, so we can have a better understanding on, that $8 million liability, and are we doing things that are helping us, pay that down quicker, or what can we afford? And then the other one is a personnel costing software.
Stuart, for
people at home, what is OPEB?
Huh?
For people at home, what is OPEB?
Yeah.
Yes. OPEB is other post-employment benefits. The biggest other post-employment benefit the city offers is a supplemental stipend to employees who were hired prior to, I'm thinking it was 2008. For those people who are hired after 2008, we don't offer a supplemental stipend. What we do is we do a matching into their 457 plan. So we went from a defined benefit plan to a defined contribution plan, which saves the city money in the long run.
And this is basically for their health care?
Basically, it could cover their health care if they so desire, yes. And because of the way that PERS rules are, I would not say that specifically.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
That was my understanding, that it was designed or intended to cover health care for retiring employees.
Yes. It has absolutely that ability to do it.
Okay.
But PERS rules are arcane enough that if I said that out loud, they would say that we would have to cover health care for every retiree we've ever had.
Okay.
And that's why we do it through a supplemental stipend instead. But yes. So the personnel costing software, again, once we have all of the information for all of our employees for PERS and OPEB into a computer system, then it becomes just an easy matter to put all their benefit plans into it, so that way we can cost that out going forward ever many years. Right now, the way I do that is I have a spreadsheet. That spreadsheet has every employee we have. It has what their salary is. It has every benefit they have. Unfortunately, the spreadsheets don't really link up very well to each other. So if I make a change in the first year, I then have to go and make that same change every year thereafter. If I add an employee, I have to add an employee to every year and make sure that that flows out correctly. So this would save time and would be able to do a better job projecting out what our costs are going forward.
I know. Nothing.
Okay. We do have a new staff position in the budget. And you can't tell, but on this one, it's actually blue. So that was the other color coding that I did. This is really bad, because even I can't tell the color
I
difference.
turned my screen off. I was like, I'm going to say guys.
I can't do this. But so new positions in the budget and the organizational charts are in blue.
No, they're not.
Well, they are in the budget document.
Theoretically.
Theoretically, they would be in blue. Okay, so
What are they?
this one is the Office Assistant Office Assistant in Human Resources. It's a new position that we are looking to add to the budget this year. And the reason is that there's just a lot that is going on in human resources. So right now we have our principal analyst who not only covers human resources but also does a number of other things for the city. As you know, one of her major ones is she does the garbage, and as part of the garbage she deals with the November cleanup that we do. But she also, does other things as required from an analyst perspective, but also in the HR area. And she wrote me cheat notes so I can really know what we're doing. But we're coming up, and we've got the negotiations coming up at the end of this year, this fiscal year. Our current contract expires in June of 2019. We anticipate that this contract year is going to be slightly more difficult than the previous contract year. And the reason being is everybody's thinking that the economy is rolling along really well. And there's an education process as to what OPEB, our costs, our future costs, and what our costs are going up for retirement types of benefits. So that will take us more time to be dealing with the departments and with the bargaining groups. So that's going to be an area. Also this year we're doing a classification study. And next year we need to, according to the contract, do a compensation study. So that will be taking up a lot of her time. We're also working through the personnel rules and regulations, which is what we have a meeting coming up on Wednesday. But after it goes to the subcommittee, it then needs to be go back to the bargaining groups. So being able to keep up on all of that stuff. We also rolled out our new financial system this year, Tyler. Or last year, we split apart the payroll and the personnel management functions to ensure more control and better accountability and audit between the two. So now, it used to be that our payroll person could input a new person into the system, determine what that person got paid, and then pay it. The check on that was I would sign every single check there was. So if it was a new person that I did not recognize, I would be able to question that. With the new system, though, what we have is our HR department is the one who's doing all the input and all of the information for salaries and benefits. So that's a new function there. You would think it would be a new system would be more streamlined, but actually this because it's got more controls, it actually takes a little bit longer to do than the old system. And then there are times, one of the reasons we bought the new system was because the old system wasn't being kept up to date, and we were very concerned about that. On the bright side, the new system is being kept up to date every quarter, and they do a new release every quarter. Unfortunately, this current last release just broke some of our links, or some of the connections, and we have to relook at our entire payroll between now and Tuesday, when people get paid. So it's taking up more time. It's a better system. It does more stuff for us, but it does take up more time. I know that was yes. We also
Efficiency.
New technology is supposed to make our lives easier, right?
in the long run it does. It's just you got to make sure it's the garbage in, garbage out. So we have to make sure we don't put garbage in.
No, you're right.
Also, we've got another issue that's, that we need to deal with, and we'll be talking about it when we get to negotiations, which is the dental plan. Right now we haven't increased the amount of money that we've set aside for dental since 2001 when I got here.
Oh, wow.
And obviously dental costs have been going up. Yeah. So we've got to go through, we've got to do the analysis as to what we think we might want to put aside, and also where does our dental plan fit in with other cities' dental plans and other private sector dental plans, and maybe we want to go off of a self-insured dental plan and go to an insurance companies like Dental Delta. So that's going to take time for our principal analyst to look at. We also, our principal analyst is also going to be spending more time doing things regionally, working with the Regional Training Consortium. And one of the nice things when we do regional and statewide kinds of work is that we get a reputation of being a good city to work for. You have our Public Works Director, which, was the president of the Public Works section in the League of California Cities and is on the board for the League of California Cities. I've been president of our insurance JPA for the last 6 years. Clay and Randy are on policy committees. I used to be on a policy committee. So the more that we get out there, the better, the easier it is for us to attract really good employees. And the one way to retain really good employees is to give them the opportunity. So there's just a lot of things that our HR principal analyst is going to do. So therefore, some of the work that she would normally have done is going to flow down to the HR technician. Which we've had here for a number of years, and from there we need to then, pick up some of that time, pick up that slack, and hire an office assistant who will be doing things more like working through some of the Tyler types of issues that we're having. So we're not spending our most expensive staff people to do that. We're also working on some of the recruitments, some of the easier recruitments. So, and we do have a number of them that we go through every year. I mean, even though we don't have a lot of turnover. But, if we have to go through a police or a fire recruitment, that takes a lot of time. Doing a public works assessment takes a lot of time, and we do have those kinds of positions that are open, and they continuously become open. And also, another big area where our principal analyst is working on is workers' comp, and we do have a couple of interesting workers' comp cases that are beginning to suck time out of her life. So because of all that, we do need a new position in HR. So that was the explanation for why we're hiring a new HR, and we're hiring it at the lowest position in the organization that we can at this point.
And that's the result on page 108 of the budget of the approximately $53,000
Yes.
additional in salary?
Yes.
That it?
Yes, that is it.
Supplies and services, again, is contract labor employees?
For that, it is, so the big expense there is going to be the compensation study that we need to do.
So we're looking at it's $149,000.
Compensation study could cost us between $20,000 and $40,000, citywide compensation study, which is we agree to in the contract, so that we make sure that everybody's working from good information.
Thank you.
That's it? Madison?
I don't have any questions.
Karen?
I don't have any questions.
Clifford?
I just got a comment, Stuart. Doing the forecasting and budgeting, it's really more of an art than a science. And, I do appreciate you, being more of a sandbagger than an overachiever. You look at your track record, it's very, very consistent. And, that consistency builds trust. And, you have a good team. And you manage your department well.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Stuart, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to bring Randy. Your turn. Public Works Department.
Public Works Department, good afternoon. Sorry about this. I am the thickest part of your budget. I know I've got 13 different divisions that I manage, so I'll try and move it along for you. And if I seem to be droning on, I'm more than happy to take the nonverbal cue, pick up the pace a little bit.
Does it have to be nonverbal?
You could just yell at me if you like. So,
You just set yourself up.
I am happy to do that. So I put this string chart in here for a very specific reason, because the organizational chart that's in your budget is really intended more to just account for bodies overall. And it looks like a very flat hierarchy, but if you look at this, you see that we're not a flat organization at all. There's a lot of coordination that we do back and forth. And so the highlights I would have you look at is you've got those, I think they're blue bubble callouts somewhere. It gives you a function of the major roles that people are doing. And then you have solid blue lines that show a direct reporting relationship. And then the dashed lines show you a coordinating relationship. And then also down there, you've got the solid black vertical line that's in there. And generally, there are some exceptions. This isn't perfect. But it helps you understand how many people you have assigned over to your enterprise funds, which are your water, your sewer, the marina. And then to the left, how many people it takes to fulfill your general fund roles. So, just as a for instance, if you start up at the top, if you start at the director, that first blue line goes down to the right, and it's the harbor master. So the harbor master reports directly to me. But then underneath that, you have a dashed blue line, and that shows that the senior civil engineer, although he reports directly to someone else for his administrative functions, for purposes of compliance with water and sewer regulatories, he reports to me. So we coordinate closely on that. And you see that so many of the people in there really do that. So this organization has changed a lot, and it really is a function of what happened after 2007, 2008, when we had that really big recession, and we lost a third of our maintenance worker staff, and we lost 40% of the engineering division staff, and this is what we went to. And so anyway, so that's just there so you get a sense of that. We're not just a very traditional organization here. I hit that. This is the marina. It shows it called out a little bit better there. One thing I would point out to you here that you may, it's not easy to pull out of the budget, but one of the things we are doing is we have 2 part-time employees down there now, and we're suggesting that we take that 2 part-time position and turn it into 1 full-time position. That way we can have 2 maintenance workers down there full-time. It's just a lot easier, we think, to coordinate their activities instead of having people coming and going and overlapping. Just have 2 full-time people instead of 1 full-time and 2 part-time maintenance workers. Out on the side there, you see the security contract, and that's what that security contract helps you explain is if you were to look at our salaries over the couple 3 years, the salaries have gone down a lot, and that's because we went to an outside firm to do security, so we don't have the part-time employees that were PSAs. That's providing us a much higher, more professional level of service there, and that's not to denigrate the PSAs at all. The PSAs weren't the problem, we were the problem. The problem was that we have PSAs that work after work hours, and we didn't have people that were there to supervise them, to provide them the oversight and training that they needed, and we just really weren't a security firm. But going to a firm that is a security firm, that's all they do for a living, the reporting, the outfitting, the training of their officers, it's really worked out quite a bit better for us.
How's that, I guess that's probably a question for Lisa, how's that working for the police department, the PD, and the security coordinating with you? Yeah, I'm sure that they do, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, they do. And we have our officers that go out there during the night shift and check in, touch bases with them and see what's going on. So it's a good communication. It works very well. At least now we can depend on having somebody down there at all times versus before when we had open shifts.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a big function of it. Okay. So this is the program highlights for the 13 different divisions. I know you can all read, and you can read faster than I talk. So what I'll do is I'll just go through and hit some of the acronyms, so it's not you don't need to hear me droning on. And I noticed, Mr. Mayor, did you do that intentionally? You put the red light on. My time's over already. I mean, I'll be happy to yield the moment.
You've done it there. Clerk's an equal opportunity.
Is that Ingrid telling me to shut up and sit down?
Randy, it's been on since Clay got up and did his overview.
Well, I wasn't going to be offended.
Just so you know, yeah. It didn't start green. It started off red.
That's great.
So everybody's running a red light.
We are, yeah. We're all running a red light. I'll get that $500 ticket in the mail. Yeah. So under the first highlights there, under administration, GIS is a geographic information system, and the reason we're bringing that on board is we do have an engineering technician, and that role has been really incredibly helpful in getting us to really increase the professionalism of the work that we output. It's been very useful in helping us get grants because that person does a lot of the applications for us. That person also does a lot of the record keeping on the utility side of it. But what GIS allows you to do is allows you to compile and stack a bunch of information on top of each other. So we're going to be able to start stacking parcel information with residence information, the addresses and utilities, and you start tying that all into one piece of information. So it makes the information much more accessible to both us and to the public if they ever need it. Under open space, of course, Open Space and Ecology Commission is what the acronym OSEC stands for. Coming a little further down under EOC CERT program, the Community Emergency Response Team, that's something that we just started within about the last year. Many of you are aware that we used to have a full-time employee in OAS, and then a number of years ago, that person unfortunately got very ill, came back to work part-time, and then eventually left. And quite frankly, the CERT program was kind of left on its own. It was the one thing that we weren't doing very well. So we hired a part-time person who's been running that, and you've met her. I think she's doing a fabulous job. I'm really happy about that. One of the things that you're also going to see in the EOC is that rather than me recommending that we staff the other half of that position, what we're going to do is we're recommending that we bring in contract labor to provide Emergency Operations Center training. So it's actually a cost savings for that, and it really brings somebody in that's aligned for that, and they can do it full time. Under landscape maintenance, I'm sorry, right above that, GCP, I hope you know, is Guadalupe Canyon Parkway. Just sorry we had to put some acronyms in there to get through it. When you come down under NIPDs, right next to street sweeping, FCTD stands for Full Capture Trash Device. We have hundreds of those inserted into our drain inlets now, and that's part of our compliance with our municipal regional permit that the Regional Water Quality Control Board does. Under both water and GVM ID, you see lead service line ID. That's actually a requirement from Cal EPA. It's not related to what happened at Flint, Michigan. It's just, it's a function of we finally have progressed along to the point where we're not just testing for lead in people's water now. We're actually required to go out and identify those. We've got approximately 120 of those that we've got to look at. We're estimating it's about $2,000 per line to go out, because you actually have to physically dig them up and check them back and identify whether they're lead lines or not. So we're doing that over a 2-year period. And we've already talked about the pilot container project, so I think you understand what that is. Street capital projects. There's a reason I put this up on here. So this does not cover all of the utility projects we're doing. And this does not cover the 3 projects that I'm managing. Right now I'm managing the library, the photovoltaic system on the roof, and finishing the Ice House Hill project. These are all the projects that we're hoping to get done in the next 2 years. And we have one person, the Deputy Director of Public Works, who's aligned for it. So that's why we're asking for a new assistant associate engineer as a position to come in. That's the primary reason for that. We've just got so many projects. We've been really successful and fortunate with some of our grant applications, but we're not going to be able to deliver it if it's one person trying to do that many projects on their own, even over a 2-year period. And as you'll see on there, it also repeats the fact that we're trying to take the 2 part-time employee positions down at the marina and turn them into 1 full-time. This is just a list of new items. For the most part, I'll go through these really quickly. A lot of these, as you look through the budget, they are not new, but what they are is because we've got someone doing our maintenance program management system now, we're actually finally allocating them out really where they belong to. So in past, they were lumped into 1 or 2 of the divisions, and now they're actually spread out to where the bodies are actually working. Mm-hmm. So it's really more a fair assignment, but it's a reassignment of cost. There really aren't a lot of additional cost on there.
Can I?
Of course, ma'am. Sure.
Ask a question. You've got a typo on the line for the vehicle maintenance. Is that extra $sign a number, or is it just
no?
That's just
a happy extra $sign. That's
okay. That's fine.
Somehow somebody was very enthusiastic putting that number in there. I'm sorry about that.
Okay. No. I just wanted to make sure that wasn't supposed to be a 9.
No. We are not missing a digit there.
Okay.
It's happy typing.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's actually supposed to be 102. No. It's 2650. That's all it is. Some of the you'll see repeatedly throughout here, we have the mobile MMS. That's a maintenance management system. And overwhelmingly, we're taking the crew across the board on the utility teams. They now have portable devices that they're using, little mini desktops. And that's how we're doing all of the reporting that we do every day at the water stations, at the lift stations, at the reservoir stations. This used to be all done and scribbled in pencil, and then it had to be transcribed back in. Now it's just being inputted as they're out there doing the work. Which it makes a lot of sense. It doesn't really take you any less time to put the information in, but it saves you incredibly on the back end when you want to gather it up, because we have to do it for annual reporting. And it also gives you a really handy tool of being able to export data, because if you're starting to have a problem at a station, like, hey, what's going on with this pump? Why is it not working? You can go back and see what sort of data and what sort of output you've had from it, and you can start to pick where you're having the issues. The emergency pothole repair under streets, that is new. That's us just finally putting a number in there, even though our streets are in pretty good system. We actually, condition, we have a pretty high pavement condition index. We're 79-ish. which I'm pretty proud of. That's really good. I think it's the top 3 or 5 in San Mateo County, but we still just have to put money aside. In the past, we were just taking it out of Hyde. We were just taking it away from other things that we were planning on doing, so now we're putting a number in there. Deep root watering of the trees continues to become a challenge for us. Certainly we've had some very dry years. We're going to have a very dry year again here before too long. With global warming, the trees are just suffering, particularly when they're new. So as we see ones that we're having problems, we're trying to get the water deep down to them to feed them.
How's it done?
So you install pipes that have holes in them, perforated pipes in the ground, and then you just water it there. Or in some cases, when we don't do that for installation, there's actually a tool. It's a pressurized tool that you can insert in the ground, and it waters down below. So that's useful, it's helpful, and the other thing that deep root watering does is it also helps keep the roots down below the ground where you want them, because unfortunately the reason why tree roots buckle up sidewalks is that because you tend to get a vapor barrier that develops between the bottom of the sidewalk and the top part of the aggregate base that it's sitting on. So it's just kind of, it's an accumulation of like dew on there. And when the roots aren't getting enough water down low, they go to find the water. And so they find the water there, and then they grow right below the sidewalk. They get bigger, and they buckle your sidewalk. So it also helps us save on sidewalk maintenance in the long term. Courtyard surveillance system, we've been broken into out there, so we're trying to make sure that we keep the cameras up and running on a regular basis. You're seeing some of the same stuff that we've seen here before. Added in a few specific line items so that we remember to go out and do things like put money aside to maintain the dog park and the community needs.
Can I ask a question on the building and grounds?
Sure.
What hazardous materials are we removing?
The hazardous materials we remove tends to be the materials that we pick up that have been dumped on the side of the road.
So that's what that $15,000 cost is for things that people have abandoned
Exactly.
on property.
Exactly.
And that doesn't include amounts that would be abandoned on Tunnel Road, because that's private.
We don't collect on the private side, that's correct.
Okay.
We make the property owner go out doing that, but Recology and Scavengers won't pick up the hazardous waste stuff under their contracts. They can't manage it either. So, and sometimes, and it's odd, but even things like tires get called out under there.
Empty spray cans. I picked up a bunch at one of the tunnels over here, and the city's like, no, you can't touch those. And it's like, well, I already picked them up. They're in a sack. So.
Yeah, it's, certainly, a lot of those rules that OSHA has put out that are intended to help employees are important. Obviously, nobody's not in favor of keeping your employees healthy, but there have been some new ones that have come out lately. Silica maintenance and management has been one of the latest ones. So even when we drill a hole in drywall now, we have to have a special piece of equipment that actually has a vacuum on it so that you don't get any of the silica that's embedded in the drywall that's coming out in the air. And it's an OSHA requirement, so we do that. So I kind of do an eye roll on that too as I look at it. And, it affects how much dry sweeping we can do of stuff on side of the road. We have to go down, wet things down. So we're a long way from where we were 40 years ago, and we were making asbestos cement pipe, and the worker in the factory stood underneath the hopper as he pulled it and let all those, fibers just flow down into the material and ended up in their lungs, and they died. So maybe it's a good thing that we're trending in that direction, but like everything, sometimes the pendulum swings perhaps a little too far, just perhaps.
Yeah, you overcompensate before you come back to.
I think you're right about that. So clay valve annual servicing. Clay valves are the control valves that we have in our system. We have, here in the central part of Brisbane, we actually have 4 different pressurized systems. Because of the elevations, you have to pump water up to it. So you have pressure reducing and pressure sustaining valves that work and help you control and keep those zones separated and keep the appropriate pressure in the appropriate zone. Years ago, I think it's been almost 20 years from when I first started here, but we had gone out and started maintaining those because we hadn't in the past. And so I came here in 2001, and we pulled one of the rubber rings out of these valves, and they're supposed to be replaced annually, and it had a stamp date of like 1975 or 1978 on it. So we thought, well, we should probably do it a little more frequently than every 25 or 26 years. So we're going to continue to keep this in the system. And again, we've been doing this, but this is just a separate line item call out for it. Here's all the fun stuff going on in GVMID. As you know, GVMID covers all of the utilities in the roadways, so there's a lot that happens in there. Our NIPD system, again, this is just realignment of costs mostly. Wastewater treatment, you'll see in the budget that really the biggest driver of the cost going up for wastewater, both for GVMID and for the sewer system is going to be the cost that we pay from SFPUC. Those costs continue to go up for wastewater treatment. This year, the water costs on the water side didn't go up at all. They held it flat. But even that's sort of an issue. I mean, if you think back to the conversation Stuart had with you about PERS and how those costs are calculated, we've never really been able to get SFPUC to agree to a system that would kind of flat line out, or at least, give us a steady rate. It goes up and down like this, and that's part of just the way they calculate it. What they do is they take last year's cost, that were known costs, and then they look at next year's projected consumption that the consumers are going to take, and then they put a factor on it and they divvy the cost up like that. So if they had a real bad year last year and spent a lot of money, then we're going to pay more next year, and it kind of, sometimes it does this, but sometimes we get lucky this year and it doesn't go up at all. In the EOC Center, we've talked about the contract services instead of trying to replace an employee. And then we've also talked about the pilot container storage project and the maintenance workshop down at the marina, and that's it. Happy to take questions.
Council questions? Cliff? Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Randy, for your presentation.
Sure.
I'm always, impressed with how enthusiastic you are about your job. And, nice to see you let your hair down a little bit and
It's a new.
Randy had to do that one, man.
I'm still getting used to it. It freaks a lot of people out.
Was this a loss of a bet? I think I heard a little background.
No, it actually.
Where it was a challenge.
It's a challenge.
It was a challenge.
It's a challenge, yes,
Okay,
yes.
it's different. Similar.
My adult sons tried to explain to me that I couldn't handle long hair, and I said, I spent 24 years in the Marine Corps. You think I can't handle it?
Yeah, I know.
It's a crazy bet. I hope they don't make me do something else stupid, right?
Well, how long is it? I mean, did you get a payout yet, or how's
No, not yet. But we're still.
Oh, it's just pride.
We're gonna wait till they yield and say, okay, Dad, you demonstrated enough. Just cut your hair, you look ridiculous.
I think it represents, how you, I don't know, I think how you present yourself. You're professional, but, you're approachable, too.
That's a really interesting observation, sir, because I have had a handful of citizens come up and actually say that and say, yeah, Randy, without that, very severe haircut from the Marine Corps, you actually are more approachable.
Business in the front,
somebody should have told me a decade ago. Somebody told me a decade ago. I'd have grown it out. It's not that big a deal. It turns out it just spends a little more time putting conditioner in that. Who knew?
So,
we have any non-hair questions?
Yes, I do. So okay, so the street capital projects,
yes, sir.
right? So
a whole list of projects.
Yeah, we got the whole giant list.
Yep.
So what kind of dollar figures are we looking at there?
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't add them up. I could get it to you and add them up.
Yeah, it'd just be nice to know, kind of approximate or whatever, because we know it's all approximate.
The ones I showed you were all ones that have been approved.
Yes.
Yeah. So but I can get that list and get it.
Okay.
Sure.
And then you're working on those OBAG funds.
Mm-hmm.
Any update on?
The federal government moves at glacial speed, sir.
Okay, so nothing.
And I don't mean glacial speeds under the influence of global warming. I mean glacial speeds. Yeah.
All right, and this is the money for the trail.
Yeah.
So so waiting on that. And then I was recently at the dog park.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It was about a month ago, so I guess that's not really recently. But the grass it was not looking in too good shape. So I mean, when you made that investment to get rid of the grass, put a new sod and everything, and I
think when we developed the recommendations for Parks and Rec to bring to their subcommittee on it, that was one of the items we noted. That was not Public Works' first recommendation, because that's what happens to grass, unfortunately. When you have grass and it's in a nice area, but it's a restricted area and it's where dogs run and they run on it, they're eventually going to destroy it. So I think we had predicted a frequency at which it was going to have to be redone and resodded. So
Yeah.
it's the nature of grass.
But I will
That's what the
say
people
that
wanted.
grass in a dog park is so important.
And of course, we're happy to do whatever people want to do, and we just hope that people at the same time understand that it is going to get to a point where it gets bad, and then we're going to have to shut it down for X amount of time to redo it, and those two just go together.
Cyclical.
That's all we can do. Yeah. If people are willing to accept that because they want grass, hey, that's great. We don't object to that.
all right.
My dogs prefer grass too, actually.
All right, thanks.
Sir.
Karen?
I have no questions.
Madison?
Nope.
Terry?
I'm good.
All right, thank you so much, Randy.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. Lisa, here we go, Police Department.
That's right. It still grows.
But Randy, and no man buns, okay? Just,
Oh, I might like to see that, actually.
I agree with that, so I find that word to be an oxymoron.
okay.
We were actually commenting about that last night. I said, at least you have still some thick hair.
Maybe some pigtails.
It kind of does look like a mullet, though.
Oh,
good,
come on, no personal comments.
Just because you can't do it, Clark. Yeah.
Yeah, I could.
Got some hair there, too, Clark.
We should have a
Yeah, trust me.
So getting down to the wire, Police
I
Department.
know, we're getting a little punchy now.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and Council members. We'll start with the Police Department. Our department has three departments that I'll be covering. It'll be administration, records, and patrol services. So we'll start with just throw in some slides for fun. Administration. What is the function of the administration? It's to manage the internal operations, carrying out the mission that reflects the community needs and the council's recommendations. The programs that run within administration, I'm just going to slightly touch on maybe one or two of the programs within the different departments. Department management. We talk about what do we oversee. We oversee records management, investigations, patrol services, traffic enforcement, and code enforcement. How do we know that departments are following our mission? How do we know they're completing all the responsibilities within the programs? One of the most important ways that we get the information is through citizen engagement. I think it's really important, a small department, to get out, myself and Bob, to get out into the community and hear how we're doing. What are we doing good? What are we doing bad? What do we need to work on as an organization? Or what issues do we have maybe internally? Some of our officers, maybe some additional training that we need to work on. So that's so key. I think our citizens are really open about giving us feedback, and I love receiving that feedback. It's really important to continue those relationships with the community and with the businesses. Then next, there's a picture of Bob. That may be the last picture you see of Bob, as he'll be retiring this year.
When are you retiring, Bob? December 30th? Wow. Is that a Friday?
This on the 30th. By the 31st, he needs to be retired.
Oh, really?
For PERS, yes.
Wow.
Our-
That's weird. It's like-
Our second department is records. The function of records, it's the management of police records. We need to comply with local, state, and federal guidelines, gathering information to assist staff, and engaging with citizens that come into the police department in need of police and administrative services. One of the programs is the department management. Management records manages not only the police records, but also restraining orders, traffic citations, preparing all in-custody reports that are going to the district attorney's office, reporting statistical data to both state, local, and federal agencies. They're running monthly reports to identify crime trends, traffic concerns, providing record support to patrol and to administration, submitting mandated reporting, and lastly, staffing our front office. And because this department is so vital to the running of the police department, you'll see in there's our records clerk. I'm going to jump forward a little bit. You'll see right there in my organizational chart that I am asking for an office assistant, part-time, in records. We currently have one person in records, our records clerk, and she also provides some administrative support. That's Jeanette. And we found out this year, was it last year, when she had actually a family emergency, and she had to take some time off, that we had no support. We had no one to back up to be able to do all of the work that she does. And so we found that we couldn't pull just any admin assistant because it takes a lot of training and understanding the laws of the Public Records Act. And so we felt that there was a need to bring somebody in part-time so that when she does take time off, that she's able to have that position filled and backed up. So going backwards, I'm going to go back a little bit. And some of the important programs within records is workforce development. It's important for our records personnel to stay current with the changes in policies and laws, especially under PRA, Public Records Act. It's important for our records person to understand what is releasable to the public so it doesn't put the city in any liability situation. Patrol services. We provide 24 hours a day service to prevent crime, enforce laws, and enhance public safety. Patrol Services covers many programs, including crime prevention, investigations, traffic enforcement, emergency response, and youth and teen programs. One of the key programs within this department is citizen engagement. Our partnership with the community is vital to the success of our department. The trust and partnerships we establish with the citizens and the businesses has an overall impact on how we come together and fight crime as a community. It's through our relationships with the community. It's through our relationship with the community that we obtain important information as to what's going on in the community. Many times, what you see in your neighborhood when an officer drives by in a patrol car isn't going to see. So it's really important to establish those relationships and, more importantly, the trust. I get so many emails from our community that say, "Hey, Lisa, don't put my name out there, but this is what I'm seeing, this is what's going on," and that's invaluable. We have to be able to, they have to know that they can provide us that information and trust us that we're not going to get that information out. And so that's so key in how we do our job every day. Workforce development is another key component, as we need our officers to be trained properly in order for them to be safe in their job and to be able to do their job efficiently. And also for retention, to be able to keep the officers so we don't have a high turnover in our patrol department. Just a couple of fun pictures, and day in the park, Officer Guadagan on the motors, and our National Night Out, which we'll be having again this August. And again, here's our police department organizational chart. It's police and the commander, who will be retiring in December, so we'll be opening up that position, both internally and to the outside, and see what turnout we get. We also have a sergeant who's going to be retiring in September, and that'll be Sergeant Borg. She'll be retiring in the middle of September, so we'll be opening that and opening up the position again for...
Who is that?
Sergeant Borg, Michelle Borg.
Oh, yeah.
She'll be retiring, yes. She announced her retirement, so she'll be retiring in September.
Who authorized that? No.
So currently, just as we got up to the 4 sergeants, the one that you met the other night, Sergeant Garay, we're going to be down short again, down 2 bodies, once Bob retires and then once Sergeant Borg retires. So we'll be opening that up. We're actually doing officer interviews next week.
Nice.
She's been with us for a long time now, huh?
She has been with us, I think, 18 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, 18 years. She actually bought through PERS 5 years. So she'll be retiring with,
And Bob, you're one of the longest serving employees in the city, right? You've been, what, almost 30 years? Yeah, okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
So some of the new items in our budget, I think Stuart hit very briefly on the homeless encampment cleanup. Last year we had 5 homeless encampments that we had to clean up, and I just wanted to assure you that before we go out and clean up, we make sure we provide the individuals with some services through the county through our homeless outreach team. And so they're placed they're given shelter and also provided medical assistance and any services they need in the county. So once they're gone and situated, then we have to get their encampment cleaned up. And so we've been using South City Scavengers. They've been giving us a reasonable price to come out and do some cleanup. And then the new position again was the part-time office assistant. And one last thing I wanted to really just briefly touch on as this came up, the city manager and I have talked a little bit about that, social media, and one of the current challenges that law enforcement is facing. I'm actually a social media dinosaur. Was never really into the social media, but, social media has revolutionized the way we communicate. And social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter are necessary tools for law enforcement, as we realize how important it is to maintain that open line of communication between the community and the citizens, keep them informed on what's going on in their community. Social media is a way of engaging, sharing, and working with the community to help combat crime and to enhance the quality of life for the residents we serve. As As well as social media can be viewed as a good tool, it can also be viewed as a useful, as a negative impact on how people view the police. Technology such as smartphones and the instantaneous uploading of video is changing what the public is exposed to. Although we welcome transparency, many times the information presented doesn't portray the entire picture, and it's taken out of context. The result is distrust towards law enforcement, leading to false claims, unethical behavior, and even violence towards the police officers, as we see that on social media. We continue to see the media coverage on the topic of racial profiling, which has been widespread this year more than anything throughout the United States. I'm proud to report that the Brisbane Police Department has not received one formal complaint of racial profiling. We attribute this to our comprehensive hiring process and the annual state-mandated training that officers have to go through yearly. And despite all of the media challenges that we face with social media, we stay committed to using every opportunity available to be transparent, engage with our citizens, and hear their concerns and keep them informed. And that concludes my presentation. If council has any questions.
Okay, council questions? Cliff?
Yeah. Thank you, Chief Macias. Yeah, I'm glad you really touched upon that citizens police department. I mean, that is something that you have really just just strongly emphasized over your how many years now have you been on the force?
28 years.
28 years. Geez, this is where you grew up and you've given back and I think you've created just an amazing culture between law enforcement and our community. And I'm glad that you brought up, that, what's been going on in our country in regards to perception of what police officers are doing in the community. I mean, it's a difficult job, and we're all human. And I'm glad that you stated that that your officers get the training that's necessary to not do racial profiling, to be more reserved in how they engage situations, so they don't escalate into really bad consequences. I'm glad that you've embraced the National Night Out to get people in the community to come down, have some hot dogs with police officers and talk and that builds trust. And so thank you for continuing to be a leader, and I really value all the things that you're doing for our community.
Thank you.
Karen, anybody?
Yeah.
You go ahead.
Thanks, Lisa. I have a comment and a question.
Absolutely.
So we often see a one-sided comment on social media or a one-sided story on social media, and then when you get the whole picture, which people will react and respond to the initial comment without knowing both sides of the story. So, if there's anything we can do to really quickly get to those things so somebody can correct, misrepresentations or misinterpretations of stuff, that might be something we can think of. How do we nip that in the bud super fast?
I think that, community is great. I know many times I get tagged on a comment that gets placed in Residents of Brisbane so that I can immediately look and see what's being said. Yeah. And so what I do a lot of times is I reach out to the messenger of that particular negative comment. If it's something that we could have done better, or if it's something that we didn't address, or many times it hasn't even been reported to the police. So I reach out to them and say, hey, I saw this, out on social Residents of Brisbane, I saw your post. Is there anything how can we, do things better? Or, I saw that it wasn't reported to the police department. Would you like to come down and file a report? And so we get that out there. And many times there's times when the information isn't presented accurately, so then we can go on and write a post about something, and they say, the police, what are the police doing about this? And we can go on the police department page and actually write something in regards to what is already out there.
Yeah.
So we do our best.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that was my comment, because, I mean, I've seen it. And you're like, no, that's not what happened. I saw the other side of that, so I get that. My question, and it's come from quite a few of my neighbors, and recently I've had a lot of emails from people in town about how do we stop Brisbane being used as the long-term parking lot for SFO? Do you have any great ideas about that?
We get very, very minimal calls on that. And I actually got a call from a resident over the weekend, and I actually monitor. I don't have anything else to do. I monitor my office line with my cell phone, and so I'm able to hear messages when they're left. And when I got the message at 3 p.m. on a Saturday about, hey, Lisa, just want to let you know this is what I just saw, and it was that somebody had parked and got out in their suitcase, got picked up. So I immediately then reached out to an officer and said, hey, can you go out and check on this vehicle? And we left it, we waited a day, and then we went out and marked it. And within a couple of hours after it was marked, it was driven away. So that's been one incident. So we were able to address it immediately. So it does help when somebody sees that and they call us and let us know. They can call the police department number. They don't have to call me directly, but I'm also fine in accepting that because many just reach out to me directly, and that's perfectly fine as well. But if they can call the local police department number and let us know right when they're seeing it, and then we kind of monitor it, and then we can go out and mark it.
Maybe that's something that you can put on Facebook that says, we've recently gotten some concern about people using parking, on-street parking for leaving their cars here to go to the airport. The way that one of the steps that you can take is letting us know if you see that so then we can take action, because it's really, we can't be everywhere at once to see this happening all the time, and so maybe that's a post you could make, like encouraging people to do that.
We can do that, yes.
I can see that being beneficial, and not to get into ideas of discussion of how to implement things, but it's really difficult for me to reach out to ask people to sort of rat out bad behavior. It just seems a little over the top to me.
Well, it's not necessarily bad behavior of your neighbors. Like, a lot of times people are coming, they're coming from other places. They're parking their cars here. They're getting an Uber, and then they're taking that to the airport.
Yeah, that's a product of two things. One is Brisbane being a very safe community, and thank you for that. And the other is we don't do permit parking. So, you see that like in San Francisco, they got permits everywhere, right, that they're going to park and stuff. So Brisbane, we're kind of quiet, and safe and no permit parking. So people, in a sense, kind of just take advantage of it now, and it's just a way that times have changed. And so, it comes down to, we've all gotten emails on this, on what do we want to do to try and regulate that. Do we want to go to a permit program? And these are all discussions that happen at another point in time.
Right.
It may be part of a larger discussion if this starts really getting out of hand, because, parking is really a challenge in Brisbane, especially when you get up in the hills. But on Wednesdays, when we do the street cleaning and have the enforcement, it's really a challenge, because then people, ferret off into the side streets, and then, you don't have any parking spots there, then it takes up, everybody has their little neighborhood spot, that's really a public spot, but it's their spot. It's in front of my house, right, that type of thing, and, that's just the way it is here, and people start getting upset, so.
I actually had a question, somebody brought this to my attention yesterday. This is, there is a spot right down the street from my house. I'm at 325 Humboldt, and it looks like somebody has put out like a makeshift handicap parking sign, but it's not. Is that somebody says somebody applied and it's
I did that.
Okay.
I'll get the chief out of line of fire that. So the Public Works Department does do that. So
are you going to put stripe that? Are you going to?
We did. I think
Okay.
if you look at the pavement there, you'll see that there's some blue stripes on the ground right there. What we...
It's kind of by the stairs, maybe?
Yep, it's right by the stairs. Yep, it's that first spot by the stairs. Yep, exactly.
And that's a temporary as needed for a resident who needs a
Yes, ma'am.
handicap
Right.
for a certain amount of time.
Because honestly, what happens sometimes, I'd have to check the records, but we probably have 5 or 6 of those open right now, because as you know, parking is very, very challenging in all parts of town, but most particularly in the central part of town. And I just come from the perspective is that, when we have a person who is struggling with a disability and they're just having problems getting neighbors to assist them and let them have
Well, I
a
didn't know
spot.
if that was city.
We put it in. That's city approved. It was city blessed.
Yeah,
Yep.
the city supported, or if it's somebody that just decided they were going to go out. And so is that temporary, or is that going to be like,
We review them annually.
okay,
So as long as the person still has a need or...
got it, okay. Sorry, just had to interject for a second.
Yeah, if I can piggyback on that, Clark, sometimes you see people that have no parking signs on their fence, but it seems like it's a public space on the street.
Yeah.
And these signs have been there for years. I mean, is that legal for them to put up a sign?
No,
that
not
does
if it's
that?
public, if it's a public spot. So if we do get a complaint of that, we go and we come back down and we check with the building and planning department on that piece of property. And then if it's not a private, for private property, if it's not privately owned, then we go and reach out to the resident and let them know they need to remove it.
Oh, I can think of multiple. Also cones, people leave cones to mark their spots.
And then also garbage cans too, in public spots. But I guess unless a neighbor complains, but to me, those things, a neighbor shouldn't have to complain. To me, if a police officer sees it, then they should just make a point of knocking on the person's door and say, hey, you need to move your cans because it's Tuesday and they picked up your garbage on Friday last week. It's just, can you just put it in your garage instead of just leaving it on the street?
And sure, we can do that. I think sometimes the difficulty is knowing or remembering which street gets picked up on which day.
Yeah.
And whether or not it's been picked up or not. So,
Yeah.
but certainly if we realize that it has been picked up and they're still there, then we can go and address it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Chief? Lisa, thank you so much. Kind of funny. I still remember. I think it was the first time I was mayor when, back in the '90s, '97 or something, when they had that shooting in L.A. and the police department wanted to get the AR-15s, and you were the model, and you were pregnant at the time, and
That's right.
Chief Hitchcock at the time had you come in and
How
model.
convenient, right? Yes, you're down at the community center.
Yeah,
I was pregnant with my first, and we were using the shotguns at the time. And you're right, after the bank robbery in Los
Yeah, in
Angeles,
LA,
when they had fully automatic weapons, and we wanted to transition, and I had the most difficulty because I have short arms, and the kickback on the shotgun was pretty tough. And so I remember Tom bringing up, we need to now move to the next generation of firearms, and I did go to the council meeting, and I was pregnant, yes.
Yeah,
I was the model.
Yeah, we approved it right then. So, yeah, that was pretty.
That's right.
Yeah. So thank you so much. One of the things I got to say about Brisbane's PD, especially being a small department, we're probably one of the absolute most diverse departments there is ethnically. And so it shows. From the officers that you're hiring and stuff like that. And, we got some real good professionals, and it's nice to have a full staff again. I've always worried about that for
Yes,
the years, from
thank
the
you.
lean years, that we were putting a lot of stress on the officers, and it's nice to have the school resource officer back in full time too. I think that really is important for the children that come up. That it builds more of a trust bond with police officers. They don't look at them as the bad guy, in a sense, or gal. That they see somebody in uniform that they develop a respect as a child, coming up, and so it's kind of a a learned thing and how to relearn it. And so that's really important for
Well, thank you.
a foundation and community. So
Thank you for acknowledging that. I know, being that we border such big cities and such diverse cities, I think it's really important that we do have a diverse department. We have multiple languages that are spoken within our officers, and that's just so important. As a matter of fact, you think some of the bigger cities would have that diversity, even just for Spanish speaking, and there'll be times on graveyards where they're asking Daly City or South City is asking for a Spanish speaking officer or Cantonese, and so we're, for a small department, it's pretty nice to see that.
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
we have that.
Thank you, Clark, for bringing that up. And thank you for, having that be a part of your decision-making process when you're out there looking for new recruits to come serve in our department. I mean, diversity is so needed in police departments, and thank you for being a great role model with that. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Clark.
I think we learn from each other, and we all learn the different cultures, and the diversity is great. We all learn from each other. So we thank Council for all of your support always.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good job, Chief.
Thank
you. Okay, that brings us to City Attorney. Oh, we got Stuart back. All right. I was wondering who's going to do this.
How come you're up here so much today, Stuart?
It's my time.
Okay.
He dressed for the part.
Oh, okay, got it.
Favorite time of year.
Yeah, I know. Stuart loves this stuff, man. And we love Stuart. We love hearing your budget. So
Let's make this one quick.
So for city attorney, there wasn't really anything to say other than we're budgeting $200,000. The previous couple of years, the city attorney contract has been about $110,000 to $115,000. We're just never sure what other kinds of issues may come up that we need outside legal attorney fees for. So, for instance, the Kinder Morgan lawsuit was one of those items that came out of the city attorney's office while we were going through that. The one that we're dealing with, the Bailins, is actually coming out of our liability fund as opposed to the city attorney's office. So it's not coming out of the general fund, it's coming out of liability because we're trying to prevent lawsuits there. So, but not much to say about the city attorney other than you guys do the annual review of that firm. And we used to budget $300,000 because we had a couple of years where we were running high, but with Michael there, we've really cut back on what we've spent. Mm-hmm. So that was going to be a really quick one. That's why Michael decided, in order to continue to cut back on what we spend, not to bill us for 5 hours worth of time.
Sure.
Of course. Hot button question. So, excuse me. How do we cut down on legal fees relative to citizen complaints? And I'm talking about, I've seen recently, certain people tend to want to beat a dead horse on a particular topic. And if we have to have our city attorney respond to each, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. How do we nip those kind of things in the bud so we're not having to use our attorney to respond to the same issue over and over again? I'll just leave it there. You want to answer that, Clay?
Right, if we ask him to do it.
Well, I think the way I would respond to that is that it often is very helpful to have the city attorney respond, and that often will put to an end an issue that somebody might want to challenge city staff on. And I think the one that I think you're talking about, I think there was a point in time when the city attorney said, I've given you all the answer I can give you, and I'm not going to have any further conversation with you about this. And so I think he is mindful of not just running up hours on those things. Okay. But my experience has been that when we bring the city attorney in to provide a legal opinion, that usually will bring to an end a particular complaint or particular situation.
So this was just an outlier?
Yeah. Well, that one, yeah, that's was a very strange case, and hopefully that won't repeat itself.
Yeah, well, I wasn't privy to a lot of it before, but it's like, wow, this is costing us a lot of money.
Yeah, it's aggravating, when one person gobbles up that kind of, but, you probably see the city attorney time, but, that happens on staff level too. I mean,
Oh,
I have a
that's
particular
absolutely.
fan in town that gobbles up my time on a consistent basis.
Right. I mean, I think one of the things with that is a lot of times what you don't see is the number of hours that staff has had to deal with it first, and that, an hour of the city attorney time or 2 hours of the city attorney time saves us a lot of money
Got it.
because there's staff to, and the same thing happens like when you have, even in departments when you have a question that it might take up a lot of staff time, but then when it gets raised to my level, like utility billing, it's like a 2-minute conversation because they feel that they've gone as far as they can. So that's part of the nice thing of having the city attorney be able to respond quickly.
Can we somehow get something in place that when we identify an issue that's either staff time gobbling that you know is going to end up at the city attorney or know is going to end up in your office or in your office, that we can nip these things in the bud from a financial perspective? If we're using 4 hours of Ingrid's time and then another 4 hours of Lisa's time and 4 hours of your time, that's a lot of money on frivolity.
Right. I mean, I think that might be one of those kinds of policy conversations that the city council may want to have, as to just how much time we want to spend on those kinds of topics. I mean, we have that in Parks and Recreation
Oh, okay.
as well, where some
Yeah.
people, so there will be continuous requests
Yep.
for the same thing over and over and over again, and we keep giving the same answer over and over again, and we just, I mean, the
policy of no.
People, I think the part of it is that no is the beginning of a negotiation for people, and it shouldn't be in a lot of instances. But I think it's a good policy conversation is to say, we as staff are trying to be very accommodating and very open and willing to engage. And it does cost us staff time, and that's part of it. But I think at the same time, as Lisa says, it gives people the feeling that they can come to us with anything, and we learn a lot that way, and we improve that way. So it's a balancing act between how much you want us to be more direct in our response, and how much you want us to be able to be engaged with the community. And we tend towards the engagement at this point in time, because we think that's where the city council and this community is really looking towards. And I think a lot of people in the community really do appreciate the fact that they can come into City Hall and spend an hour and a half to 2 hours chewing on somebody's ear.
I'd like to equate that to the amount of time we spend in our meetings, where we could have it as 2 minutes for a speaker, and we choose to have it as 5 because we're willing to give up the time and listen to our community. So I think that sort of goes hand in hand with the amount of tolerance that our staff has for engagement with the community and where we need to draw the line.
Yeah.
It's a hard balancing act. It's always the challenge.
Okay, that's it.
Any other questions? City attorney questions? Terry?
No.
No. Stuart, thank you so much. Okay, so that's going to bring us to the next part, which is provide direction on potential budget changes. I want to take a quick 2 or 3 minute break and come back
Sounds
for
good.
that exciting portion. let's reconvene here. So, items not in the budget. I guess we could start with that, huh?
Right. So what I was thinking for this time is if there's any changes you'd like to see in the budget. The first ones I would imagine you'd want to take a look at are the items that we did not include in the budget.
Okay.
This was brought up at the goal setting workshop. We were talking about.
Is your screen on?
No, I turned it off because I can't look at it.
Oh.
I just heard fatigues my eyes. Yes. Mine isn't really, of course, I would really like to see the history committee's requests fulfilled. I kind of combed through whether a lot of this was necessary, and we ironed it out during the subcommittee, and these costs are going to be really integral to being able to pull off our oral history video project. And also archiving a lot of our old, records and pictures and things like that is going to be so important because we want them to be able to be searchable for people that are doing research in the library in the future. And also, it's important to save a lot of these resources because in paper format, they're only going to last so long. So the longer we wait to do this, it puts some of these vital things in jeopardy. It's going to have to be done at some point or another. So I think we should just kind of bite the bullet and do it now. And then also the amount of time that it's going to take to interview everybody and put the project together. There's really nobody on staff right now who has that amount of time that they can dedicate. So it is imperative that we get somebody who can kind of step in and help us with that. The other thing, and this is where I was going first, we talked about this at the goal setting workshop, was improving some of the stairways in town. And there were a couple that weren't on that list, and I didn't really feel comfortable moving forward with them until, I went out and took a look myself, and Cliff reminded me that I had said that. And so yesterday we went and we walked a bunch of the stairways, and they are, I think, like all of them, mostly except the one that goes up from Solano, is probably in desperate need of repair. And so I'm happy to support spending money on fixing those. And I think it would be important maybe to put some signage indicating like that there is a stairway there, because you wouldn't know it unless somebody had really pointed it out to you, or you had lived in Brisbane a long time to just kind of know that those stairways were there. So those are a couple of things that I would like to see us budget for.
Okay, to add to the budget, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I have a question. So in regards to the history committee's recommendations, this is a one-time cost to get someone who can organize all the information and reaching out to people, I guess, too, because they're you can imagine someone like Dolores who's got a bunch of stuff, and then get it all digitized, and also have a video type of.
Well, so the digitization, so the $10,000 would just do the Brisbane B that we have.
Okay.
So it would not do all the photos. So that would be, we would. So I think the history committee, as the lead staff person for them, I'll try my best to speak for them. They would see that as like probably a 2 or 3 year kind of project to try and get everything digitized. We would be working with the library district to see if there's ways that we can work with other cities to see if we can get some discounts for the cost of digitization and what they can do. The video history project, that $10,000 is a one-time type of cost because that's getting the equipment that we need. But the staff for the history committee, I mean, that could be a 2-year cost because there are so many people that we want to that are on the list. And this is just the list that we came up with in like a couple of weeks. I mean, one of the questions that I think the history committee is going to talking to the subcommittee about is, do we want to include the school district? Because we're just talking about people who know history about the city and the mountain and the rail yards, but there's a lot of other history within the community that we may also want to, as we get further into the project, we may find that it becomes, and then you get to the next ongoing question is the maintaining the archives. So, I mean, I think as we start down this road, we will find that there will always be a need for some additional staff time to be working on the history project.
Yeah, and these numbers reflect 1 year's worth of work. They don't
This is
reflect
1 year's worth of work,
This is
but
a major start, Cliff, so we don't really expect it to like balloon up year over year. Expect it to shrink.
right, but
Okay,
it's
so
not
not $50,000 a year
No.
on a kind of an annual basis?
No, it's for this one project mainly. And I would assume, that once we do complete the video project, the equipment, and staff can correct me if I'm wrong, but the equipment that we're going to spend on a camera and stuff like that, I mean, I would want us to sell that so we can recoup that money. And I would assume that, like, once you get most of those things digitized, you're probably not going to have as influx as much with new material than kind of what we've got right now. So that will probably come in, like, smaller streams here and there. So you probably won't need as much staff time to digitize that.
right. My guess is it'll go down, but it is not just a one. There will be an ongoing cost because it's an ongoing.
All right. And would this come out of the budget for the library? I mean, I know here we're talking about the general fund, but this is really for the library, isn't it?
Well, it is, but it's a separate budget that, we formed a history committee. It's for that library portion of it, but it's, okay, this is part of the programming, I guess you could say, because part of that will go into the digitizing the Brisbane B archives. Instead of letting people go through them, they will have the digital portion of it, but it'll be in that Brisbane history room in the library, in the video archives and stuff like that. And so that's kind of all part of it,
And they're not just scanned, they're searchable. So, like, when if you're doing a report for college or high school, you want to be able to, like, search in the database for specific, something that's got certain phrases in it. You want to be able to extract the 10 articles that are related to the topic that you're interested in instead of just, like, going through everything online. So that's another aspect.
It is. I mean, I will tell you, like, I know that there's a person who's going to be doing a research project using our archives about how did cities post World War II grow? And so the question is why did Brisbane not grow to the same extent as other cities? So they're going to be using our, the Brisbane B and other types of things. So being able to do that online is a whole lot easier than having to come in here. We could put it as part of the library budget. We could put it as part of central services, and we could put it in the city manager's office. I mean, those are the three places where it could land logically. And I think part of it is going to be, trying to figure out where the city council and the public will be able to continue to track it and it doesn't get lost. Because I think that's going to be, that's an important part of anything in the budget is that people can understand what makes up the budget. So we'll figure out the right spot for that if the city council decides they want to do this.
It's kind of funny, Clay had come across it wasn't in Brisbane B, but it was a newsletter from 1948 in Brisbane. And Brisbane had 4,500 people.
Yeah, I saw that. But I don't know who put that in our box. Was that you, Clay?
Yeah. Eagle's the one that found it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
We all got a copy.
Yeah, but stuff like that is like, wow, we're the same size right now as we were in 1948,
Bigger family.
They lived a lot closer then,
Yeah.
in the home.
Well, they're a lot bigger. I mean, a lot more people,
Bigger families.
Bigger families,
Yeah.
Small
More kids to a bedroom, if not more.
63 are the same size, like a 4,300 or whatever it was, so. So everybody okay with Madison's proposal on the history subcommittee?
Yeah, I just have a question, though.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the digitizing the archival material, that's the old Bs and things like that. What about the old photographs? Is that included in that?
But not in that 10,000. We will do that after we go through that. It'll be another cost. This 10,000 is just for the B.
Well,
the history committee wants to do that.
Right.
But they also recognize just how long this takes. So they want to come in with a reasonable plan. Is okay. We think we can get through the B this year, and then when we have time, we'll go through the photos, and we'll come back with a cost for that as well.
That'll be like a next year.
Well, I'm just thinking because I digitized a lot of photographs myself. There's such amazing apps now to do that I can get a 15, 18 megapixel photo from, digitized photo from this particular telephone that is fantastic quality already. I mean, we might be able to make it a project for, I don't know, a school kid or something. I'd be happy to sit there and take 100 pictures and they're done. I think.
That's just something we could run through.
We can run through that. Right. Well, I mean, the history committee will do the research.
I think that's actually really a simple.
But it's not just that, it's all the categorization that goes on a back end in like an actual database where you've got to like tag that photo in a database as being a BES photo or a park photo or a 23 Club photo, so that if you are looking for those photos, you can pull them up instead of going through 3,000 photos, let's just say one by one manually online to find the one that you want. So the work is not just to get it in digital format, it's also to like categorize that within a database, which takes a little bit more skill. But we talked as a history subcommittee, how can we reduce costs on this? How can we maybe get a college student or a grad student that is in this line of work that might be a little bit cheaper than going out and getting somebody that's been in the workforce for a while? So that is something that's, a priority too, is to keep these costs as low as possible.
The other thing that you talked about after the equipment is used for the video project, that we sell it and recoup some of the losses. What about purchasing used equipment now?
We're looking at that. I mean, that's Keith's suggestion.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I just don't want it to just like sit around if we, once the project is over, like as soon as it's over, I think, because then it has as much useful life, get it sold instead of trying to sell it 5 years from now when it's like not as desirable by other buyers.
I mean, Keith. Keith is, as a resident of the city, he's trying to do the best he can. He's willing to donate his time for the city. He's not trying to run the cost up, so he'll give us the best advice as a professional as to what we need.
And he'll edit and he'll do the video and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Is everybody good on that? No.
I am. I'm good.
Yeah, I'm fine too.
Yeah, Terry?
So we're going to go through and recommend inclusion, or are we going to look at the total bump, amount, and how willing we are to go further into reserve spending?
Yeah.
Yeah, Stuart. I mean, so at the last meeting at the DoubleTree, we had the list of capital improvements, and we looked at what we felt comfortable spending, and then what we would bring back to the June meeting. So do you have that list of items?
Well, on page 238, we have the approved projects, right? Is it? But not everything's on there that we had discussed at the meeting here, I think, the last time, right?
Well, those were the ones that were approved.
Right.
And I know I had put that I know I have that list. I just don't know where I put that list of the three. There were 3 projects.
So these are in the budget, the page 238.
Right. Yeah, those
So
were the
we
ones.
don't have a total.
Right, those were the ones that the city. Well, those were the city council approved, and they approved them in the current fiscal year, so 17-18. So they don't need to be in the 18-19 budget. And I just don't remember what my 3.
Well, they haven't been done, so they're carried over,
Right.
So.
Right, but they're not.
Yeah.
But they've already been allocated.
Yeah, so
They're not part of this year's use of reserves.
Yeah, I couldn't find the other ones that we talked about, so.
I think these were the majority.
Darn it. No, there was 3 projects. There was the Marina Pier.
Yeah.
There was
Sierra Point to Humboldt Stairway.
and then there was a third.
And
Alvarado to San Benito
I don't know.
Stairway.
I don't know if we approved that.
I don't think you approved that.
We didn't. That's why we said we were going to come back.
There was only 3 that you said you wanted us to bring back, and I don't think those were.
those were the
Those were the 3.
Those were the 3?
Yeah.
I'm fairly confident.
Okay.
Yeah, so I actually went out to the marina just to take a look at the pier. You know, the fishermen, they actually like it the way that it is. So they can put their pole in between the holes.
Somebody probably drilled it.
Yeah, so.
But they're doing quite a bit of work on the pier right now.
Are they doing some work on the pier right now?
Right, they're doing.
Oh, okay. So and this was right after we had that meeting at the DoubleTree.
Holders to the project.
So one of the project for the pier that Randy was thinking was actually not so much the top part of it, but there is a drain line that needs to get fixed as well. So the council talked about fixing the top, and I think that's what you're working on now.
Right, we're doing the wood railing replacements now.
Right,
We're just doing that as staff time permits.
Right. So the other project that when we brought the fishing pier, it's a fishing pier drain line that runs underneath the pier, and that needs to be replaced. So that would cost us $97,000 to replace that.
How much?
We are doing 97.
Oh, okay. So, Randy, based on that project, I mean, is it like something we got to do right away, or can it wait another year or two, whatever?
Well, I'd always rather get those things done before we have a bad discharge in the bay. It's hard to guess what the actuarial life of.
All right. So it sounds like something we should get on. Okay. And then just on those railings. So when I did go out there, those fishermen, they like putting their poles into the holes. Are we going to have something for them to put their poles into once we do these new rails?
When they actually make such a product as that. I mean, if you've been out to a lot of the fishing piers, they make a device you can clamp on there.
Yeah. Okay. So
they jury rig their own, right? They just drill a hole in there.
That's right. They do. So to avoid having them jury rig their own, so we'll have something in place.
Yep. Sure.
Okay. Cool. Thanks.
Pole holders.
Yeah. No. They will just.
So what were the other two, Stuart, please?
Sierra Point to Humboldt pedestrian access. And then the other one is the alley improvements for the Alvarado San Benito.
And what was the amount?
Our projection for the Sierra Point is $150,000, and the alley improvements for Alvarado San Benito is $200,000.
I'm sorry. So Sierra Point to Humboldt was how much?
$150,000.
150.
That's actually San Benito, Sierra Point, right, where they kind of intersect, right?
That is correct.
Talking about?
Uh-huh.
No?
No. The one from Sierra Point to the Humboldt is the one that's on the top side. So you come up from San Benito, and you've got that really big jump right now. You kind of get up to the fire hydrant there. You're on Sierra Point. Mm-hmm. So then you turn to the right. And then Sierra Point to Humboldt goes up a driveway. It looks like it's a private driveway, but it's actually an easement there.
But what I'm saying, though, is Sierra Point and San Benito intersect.
That's true.
Kind of.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
I do. Yeah, right. When they blend
I
together.
think one side of the road is Sierra Point, and one side of the road might be San Benito, and then because they come in like this, and then they go back out like that.
Right.
I'm just saying as a point of reference.
Generally in that area.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So can we get signage too, so that it's clear that, like, if I was just a person walking by, I didn't know this until we had this conversation, that you I would never go up someone's driveway like that and know that there were stairs there. So is there a way, like even small signage, so people know? Maybe it's not optimal in that spot because there might not be any place to put it because there's private property there, but even like in some of those stairways, it'd be important to kind of note that this is a stairway that you can use.
City right away, right?
We'll just put a public access sign.
Yeah.
They make signs. It's public access with an arrow.
Yeah. I think the
Can they be like natural and not the white reflective stuff? Can they be like a natural signage, wood signage, more ecological?
Yeah, we can do that. Sure.
Then
Aesthetically
point
pleasing.
this way.
That's like indicates there are stairs maybe too.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I think, Randy, that is a city right away, right? That
Yeah.
the
Yes,
portion.
it is, absolutely.
Yeah. And
We
that
have an easement.
somebody poured the driveway way back when.
Right.
Unauthorized, typical Brisbane.
I don't know if we own it or if we have an easement there. I can't.
Maybe we should find out.
Okay, sure, we can do that.
So Stuart, you and I talked about, the impacts to the reserves and the budget. And from the meeting that we had out at Sierra Point and then till today, it sounds like the city's finances are a little bit rosier than what you had said then. I mean, not that much. It's only a couple months, but
right. It's only a couple months. I mean, sales tax is still going strong. TOT is still going strong. I have, the departments are still finishing up spending their budgets. And we're not going to be worse off than we were when we talked at Sierra Point at the DoubleTree.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you we're going to be.
Yeah. No. Okay. So we're looking at, if we did the 2 stairways and the pier, that's an additional $450. And then we're going to add the $50,000 for the history committee recommendation. So based upon the analysis that you just showed us, earlier, is there you feeling any like worry or in regards to the 5-year overall budget?
Well, at this point in time, what we would do is we would take the $500,000 more out of reserves. It would lower everything $500,000. We would extend the time that would be below the reserve policy. Do I have a worry about it? If it becomes an issue, we would bring back a solution.
Okay.
I mean, I think we have the ability to do it if these are important projects for the community. I mean, that's why you save money. You save money in order to do things that are important to you. If we need to figure out a way to, if we need to come back with a change in services because there's a change in the economics of the city, we will come back with a change at that point in time.
All right.
Well, that's more than we spent. I mean, that's less than we spent on the extra projects in the 2017-2018 year.
This is true. And then, this one stairway, the one that goes from Alvarado to San Benito, we did try and get a grant from CCAG, and we were unsuccessful. But there's another grant that's out there, and so I feel that we might be able to land one of those grants. I mean, of course, they're unpredictable. So, but if we do budget it in this upcoming budget cycle, I would continue to work with staff and try and get that grant.
Yeah, a lot of times, and Randy, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but a lot of grants and stuff that you can get, if you're project ready, you have a better chance, right? In other words, the design is done and
readiness is typically an important factor. Yes.
Yeah. So we could start to allocate some money for plans and then be shovel ready.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think that might be, a more conservative way to go is to get the plans done, and then, if we can get grants, that'd be great. And if something changes in the budget projections, we can come back before we start the project.
Exactly. So you earmark it, but it doesn't mean you're spending it.
Correct.
So. Yeah. All right. So I would, if you need do you need a motion to add these extra items, or is this something we just all agree
I
upon?
will, because, what I'm going to do is, based off of today, bring back the final budget for the June 21st approval.
Okay, so I would make a motion to.
Sort of like to talk about stuff.
All right. Okay. Sorry, getting ahead of it.
It's okay. Doing some quick numbers because we don't have a real easy overview in this book. Changes in budget per department appear to be from 2% for our city clerk, who did the best job of not increasing their budget, or at least working within the prior budget, to 40% at administrative services for cost allocation. Can you give a brief overview of why? I mean, I want to say it's mostly human services that's 40% increase in budget.
Sure. I mean, part of it is the fact that they are a small budget and they're adding a person. So, a person, you're adding, probably about $80,000 when you talk about salaries and benefits. So when you start from the small base, you have that. Plus you have the compensation study. So, I mean, you have those two things that are doing it. I mean, it's always a matter of how big the base is when you're talking about percentage increases.
Okay. And then, while we have a cost of living index of about 13% or 3%,
3%, if 13 would be good.
most of our departments are increasing their costs 14 to 15%.
Right. So you have PERS were going up more than the 3%. You've got previously we were not funding the entire annual required contribution for OPEB. We are doing that now, so that was a major increase that we were facing. So a lot of the issues that we have talked about in the past in trying to pay down the liabilities, we're doing that now. So that was a major change when it comes to the benefits.
Okay. I love the fact that we have money in our budget when we get to the halfway point to add projects that we think are really important. When we're getting closer to $2 million coming out of reserves, it scares me, even though we have a projection of things going pretty well. And I say closer to $2 million, I think it's $1.7 million if we add the projects that we're talking about now and here, and giving all the projects that Park and Recreation's looking at to them on this, because that's approximately additional $40,000 in Park and Rec that's not on their budget.
Well, I don't think we haven't really talked about that yet.
Right.
Well, I thought we were getting sort of a motion.
No, we haven't talked about that yet. I mean, we're talking all the three projects, the three major capital projects, and the History Committee and Parks and Recreation Commission showing up on the screen. It comes to $537,300, a little.
And that's why I suggested maybe for us for the stairway projects is to do the plans now, so we know so we have those, and then see where we are with the budget to see if anything's happening that would impact that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I was trying to draw that balance because
I'm trying to draw it out because I'm worried about going that much into our reserves, right here at the beginning of our 2-year budget cycle, where if there's projects that come up during that budget cycle that we want to add because they've got an extreme need or an extreme want in the community, that we aren't hog-tying ourselves to already putting this money towards projects that we've already approved. And it's so easy to add projects, it's really hard to pull them back once we've promised the community or budgeted for them. So I just wanted to give my worry that we are overextending ourselves to a certain degree, beyond where I feel really comfortable. We're adding, staff in several departments. We're looking at, doing things that I just want to make sure we're not overstepping right from the get-go and spending money that we're having to pull out of reserves.
If you had to take something out of what we've suggested so far in terms of like that little short list, what would you take out? Or would you take out like things
Before you go there with that, Madison, let me ask Randy a question, and this is pull it off the top of your head. For the two projects that would require design, which would be the Sierra Point San Benito to Humboldt walkway and the San Benito to Alvarado walkway, what do you think the design cost of those would be?
Probably 15 to 20,000.
So each?
Yes, it's calculating off the back of an envelope, yes, sir.
Okay, all right. So if we say budgeted 20,000 for each of those and took out the improvement part, would council be comfortable with that?
Sure.
Well, that's removing a quarter of $1,000,000, which is a good chunk to remove.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm much more comfortable
Okay.
with reducing it by a $250,000.
Is that reasonable?
Yes, sir, it works for me, we can do that.
Because it would take a while to
Sure.
develop these anyway. And
Happy to do it.
we could look at doing the grants.
Where we're at then.
And then,
Yeah.
and then if not the case, in the next 2-year budget cycle, we could do it, or we could do a supplemental, right? So.
Yes, sir.
All right, so say we knock that down That'd be removing 130 and 180, right? You okay with that, Cliff?
So that'd be 350.
Huh?
That would remove, what, 310? $310,000 it would remove.
Right.
Yeah, no, to me, I think that's appropriate. I mean, I think what we're doing is saying these are important, and this is the first step, and yeah, once we get those plans, I mean, it would be a lot easier to get grants, but if we get denied again, then, okay, writing's on the wall, we're not going to get that money. And so if our budget's looking good and, say a year or so from now, okay, well, yeah, let's fund it.
So if we did 90,300 that's on the screen, which is also the Park and Rec Commission recommendation, the History Committee, and the drain line for the fishing pier, and the design for the 2 capital improvement projects, that would bring the total to 227,300.
I'd like to see some cuts in the park and recreation allotment, too.
I think that in the past, we've gotten the line item, the amount it costs, and then a description. And I would need a description on all of these things before I felt comfortable, because new special events is super vague. Sunrise room improvements, I have no idea what improvements we're talking about. So, like what we've done in the past, I'd like a little synopsis, a little paragraph describing each, because that's really going to help me determine whether it's important.
We can bring that back for the 21st meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, the Mission Blue, though, sounds...
I'm comfortable with these, just so you know, because I know that you kind of went through it. In a way, you had it on your list, that there was new couches and stuff like that for the sunrise room, and along with other furnitures.
Kitchen stuff.
And new carpet. And
yeah, we did go through that already. Yeah, I'm good with all of these,
That was part of
too.
Parks and Recreation. But, I mean, if you want, I can bring that back on the
When you did the
21st.
presentation. It's in.
Parks and Recreation
Yeah.
presentation, but I can bring that, we can bring that back on the 21st. I can,
Okay.
and on the 21st, when you approve the budget, if you're not comfortable at that point in time, you can still remove things from the budget at that point.
You want to do that then?
It'll just
Yeah,
be
I
on the
just would like a little bit
Okay.
more time.
Can we identify what the special events are too?
No.
No.
No. Sure doesn't have a crystal ball, so...
Well, what the Parks and Recreation Commission is trying to do is put money aside for pop-up events.
Okay.
So they don't want,
That's
so
right, you
there's
said
not any idea of what they are at this point in time, but they want to be able to say that on June 22nd, we're going to have this in the park. On August 13th, we're going to do a movie at the pool.
Well, I'd like some ideas of like what is a pop-up event.
Sure, we
Is
can
there
do
food?
that.
Is there
We can't tell you exactly what is going to happen because
Right, but just some samples of
Sure,
like
we
what
can do
is
that.
a pop-up event.
Yeah.
Sure.
Can we also, when it comes back to us, and sorry to interrupt you, can we get a traditional pie chart of where our money's going to what departments?
Sure.
Just as a general gist, so we know if of our overall budget, if we're spending 20% in park and rec, or we're paying, 40% in police and fire, or whatever the percentages are.
Okay.
Just so that we have an idea of where we're spending our pile of money and where it's going and to what services. Because I know while we're doing a priority-based budget, you're looking and saying, oh, yeah, this program has benefit, but I think we sort of need to look at it overview on what really is, not that it just meets certain aspirations of our goal budget, but that it meets, real needs. Because, again, I love being able to spend money on things and provide things, but I'm also very conservative about where the budget's going.
Okay, so, having said everything we said thus far, is council comfortable with moving or making a motion for the $187,000, for the $50,000 for the subcommittee, or for the history committee, the $97,000 for the drain line for the fishing pier, and the $40,000 for the design of the 2 capital projects?
I make that
which adds
motion.
up to 187?
Yes.
Are
Yes.
we comfortable with that? And
Yes.
Jerry?
Until we get to the final budget where we're really talking about it, yeah. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, so we can kind of make a motion so that staff can kind of plug that in?
Yep.
Or you, to the budget?
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
But didn't staff say we're making a motion to do that?
Well, what you're doing
are
is
we
I'm gonna
giving
bring it back.
direction?
I'm going to bring it back. You're giving me direction. So
Yeah, just
I have enough direction. So on the 21st, what you will see is the budget again. And you will tell you to bring back your book. I will give you the traditional budget resolution. Included in that resolution, I will put this $187,000 as part of that budget resolution. Show what that impact has on expenditures, what impact it has on fund balance, and then I will have more information on the Parks and Recreation Commission's items for that $40,000. And at that point, you can amend the motion to add the $40,000, or you can amend the motion to reduce it, if you would like to reduce it by anything. So at this point, I just needed to know basically what you wanted that resolution to look like.
Okay.
All right.
And I'm fine.
That sound good? Good. All right.
I have just a couple more things, Clark.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, we talked a little bit about community in the park. So the last couple of years, we've had the larger footprint. In the past, we've had the smaller footprint. I'd like Park and Rec Commission to evaluate. Do we stay larger? Do we go smaller? And I know we're budgeting for the larger, but maybe in the end, after they powwow about it, maybe it makes sense to go back to the.
Are you talking about the layout?
Just layout. And, when you have a bigger layout, you want to fill it with things, right? You have a smaller footprint. You maybe provide fewer things.
As a liaison, I'm going to be attending, and I think Karen might be the other liaison. I'm actually going to be attending the meeting on Tuesday, the Day in the Park subcommittee meeting to discuss this, and that's the reason why I'm going.
Yeah, so I think it would be good to do that.
But the budget has been reduced from last year.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, let's see, at the last meeting that we had at the DoubleTree, we talked about the Skyline College President's Breakfast. And instead of paying for a seat at the table or buying a table, we thought, okay, let's at the council when we budget level, let's just give them a chunk, a set amount, rather than having paying for something that then part of that money gets cut out of what actually goes to them. And so in the past, I think we used to give Skyline College like
$2,500. So based on the direction at the DoubleTree when you told me to do that, I actually saw the president of Skyline College at an event. I let her know that the community, Brisbane, was willing to do that. She told me she would. I gave her my email so she can tell me how to pay for it. I had not received an email. I contacted her through email again, letting her know.
Okay.
And I've yet to hear how to give them money.
Okay.
So, it was I think we did $2,500 in the past, and if the city council wants to do that again, we can. But they have to tell me how to give them money.
Okay.
To me, that seems a lot. Like, I would almost rather prioritize that giving more to our local nonprofits like G3 or Lions Club or Village Helping Hands than Skyline, to be honest, even though I'm alumni, but I think $2,500 is a lot.
And we can reduce that if you'd like. We're already doing $150 a month for G3. As the city council said, we are.
But is G3, the amount of work that G3 does for our community, and in comparison, giving a very similar amount to Skyline College, I just don't think that.
That's. Yeah, I just wanted to let you know we're already doing something for G3, and we are meeting a request that Village Helping Hands has asked us of. So.
Well, I'd kind of like to honor our work that our Park and Rec Commission is recommending to us. It's kind of like having people who work for you, that.
I agree.
A lot of times it's you want to make them feel motivated, and that what they're saying has substance and accept it. So they're recommending $43,000, so I hope that we kind of also look at it from not just a dollars and cents point of view, but also, that we want to keep our folks motivated and just not.
Well,
that wasn't part of their list, right? The Skyline College. Yeah. I'd rather take $2,500 and put it towards one of those things.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just putting it out there. In the past, we have supported Skyline College. I mean, that is our community college that most kids, that would come from Brisbane or adults, wanting to get additional skills, so that they can improve their lives. I mean, a $2,500 investment in higher education, I think, is a very small amount. And with something we've done in the past when, the cost of living was much lower. So keeping it the same, I think, it's a small amount, but it sends, I think, the right message. So it is okay to have a $2,500 contribution, annual contribution to Skyline College.
So as far as motivating our Park and Rec people, I think that they do a fabulous job, and it's not just identifying more places we can spend money, but it's also using the money they have to work on projects that are working out for the community. And so that is a motivation, not just finding more projects to do or expanded services.
No. They're identifying things that they think we have a need.
I know they are, and all the other departments are also identifying needs too. But I would like to say that I felt that the smaller footprint for the park, the community day in the park, was much better than the current footprint that they've expanded to. And I've heard a lot of complaints from people about that setup and that it's not worth doing that, that it takes away from the community feel of it. So, but that's not even in our budget considerations, but I think it's very valid that, a lot of things are wanting them, but it doesn't necessarily mean we have to give everything in one budget cycle.
Yeah. So is the $2,500 okay to give towards higher education for Skyline College? I know, Clark, you said you're okay.
I'm okay with it. I think is what we've done with the other stuff. We give the feedback to Stuart, and then when it comes back on the 21st, we'll...
Okay. All right. So then the other thing is,
Wait, I do have a question about that. Why would we specifically give it to Skyline College? I mean, there are a bunch of, and we saw this when people were getting scholarships through the Chamber of Commerce. I went to CSM and Skyline. They're in the same district. So why would we prioritize one particular school when there are 3 schools in that district? Is there a way to give to children from Brisbane, or students from Brisbane don't just all go to Skyline? There are plenty of students that go to CSM as well. So I don't know why we've selected Skyline as the one recipient when there are 3 schools in the district.
Well, it is the closest one. I mean, you could divvy it up, but then, what kind of impact are you really making? So, in the past, we used to give a significant amount of money to the Jefferson Union High School District, but we had to change that because of the school bus. Our council has always, valued supporting education, and so this is just a token amount, to help our local community college. CSM, yes, some people do go there, but it is not the local community college. Skyline is, so that's why.
I work with a group of guys and gals. We all went to Jefferson High School, and every year we do a fundraiser now. And it's basically for a former coach who coached at both Jefferson and CSM, and a lot of us, played sports at CSM, but we raised anywhere from $300 to $3,500 a year that's used for scholarship for a student athlete that maybe is not such a great student or athlete, but they want to go to college and that they don't have any means of doing it. So we do a fundraiser of alumni. And,
I mean, the $2,500 has traditionally gone to the President's Innovation Fund at the Skyline College. If you would like, I can check with the Community College District to see if they have something community district-wide, something similar to that.
Or maybe I'd like to earmark it for like that. I'd be more interested if I knew exactly how that money was going to get spent. Like a G3 with that $150, I know exactly how it's getting spent. So if it was if it could be some sort of scholarship, maybe somebody who's interested in working in government, or maybe we can come up with something, or police and fire. There's a fire academy at CSM. Maybe we can do something that we can have as a scholarship, and anyone from the district can apply. And that way, it may not be a Brisbane student, but we know that money, even though it's $2,500, which you're saying isn't a lot, could be really significant in one person's life, or a couple if it's divvied up into a few different amounts. That, I think, would be good.
That is exactly where the money. I'm sorry. That's exactly where the money would go. It would go, as Stuart is saying, the president's this scholarship fund. But you know what? How about we'll get that information?
Right, so I'll put $2,500 in. I will get with the community college district and see if there's a way to create basically a Brisbane City Council scholarship for something related to public service within the district.
Could be the district fund,
right,
instead of Skylines.
Right, that's what I'm hearing at the moment.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'll bring that back, and it'll take me a little bit of time to work with the district, and whenever I figure that out with the district, I'll bring that back to council to make sure that it's meeting the council.
Stuart, that President's Breakfast was to raise money for scholarships for these folks, and $2,500 would cover someone's tuition needs for a year. So if it's possible where it could be we donate that money and then it's set aside for a Brisbane kid or an adult, whatever, then if you could look into that.
Sure. I'll check with the community college.
So my understanding, though, that fund specifically, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is for kids who are coming out of high school, and you have to go through this 1 year long program, or a certain long program where you go during the summer and you meet with a counselor. Not every single student needs that. I wouldn't have needed a program like that. But I could have still really used a scholarship at that time in my life. Funds were really tight for me then. So, that specific fund is for that type of program, I think, and that's what they talked about at that breakfast as I went. So I would like something that's maybe a little bit more general that could be for an adult. For continuing education, doesn't necessarily have to be some kid right out of high school. It could be for somebody who wants to go to the fire academy. I like it maybe to be a little bit more general, and prioritize a Brisbane applicant.
I'll bring something back.
Okay,
Yeah,
that
you
sounds
beat
good.
this one to death.
All right. So, and then just one last thing, Clark. So, a few years ago we had the Shanky Bakery sale of the property, spur property to them, and then so we've had this. I guess we have a fund, Stuart. Mm-hmm. So a couple weeks ago, I met with a member of the community and someone else who's been working on cleaning up the Crocker Park Trail. They would like to, before the city moves forward with building the new trail, doing some restoration work along the trail. So we have this money. I think it might be a smart idea, and I should have probably talked with Randy about this. I apologize, Randy. Maybe having, a habitat restoration master plan along the trail so that...
So the Parks and Recreation Commission and the Open Space and Ecology Commission have talked about this, as you had suggested, and they do have money, and they have money that they would like to put towards restoration. The advice they got from the Public Works Department at the time was to wait till the trail was redone before you do the restoration. Okay. That way you don't impact the restoration as you fix the trail.
Okay, yeah, I don't know if, what comes first, the chicken or the egg, Randy. So, what's better? To do the trail first and then do restoration, or do some restoration first?
I'm going to go with the previously issued recommendation. To go ahead and do the trail first.
Do the trail first. Okay.
But if you'd like, I'd like to know the name so that way we don't cross paths as to what kind of restoration we're doing between what's being recommended by the Parks and Recreation and the open space and this person, so we can work together and get.
Oh, it's someone from Open Space, Committee, Michelle Salmon.
Oh, okay, so that's, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, okay, so all right, then I guess we're good.
Okay, is that it?
Yes, please.
Anybody have anything else?
No.
Anybody? Nope. Good. Terry, anything? You're staring at me. No,
I'm good.
all right. Okay, then we're adjourned. Staff cleared mud, direction,
Yep.
move forward.